Chapter 51. Hey, it's Moquin, you. Mao Tang didn't know what to say when he looked at Moquin, who was staggering in front of him. He still remembered that when he left Wrongway Valley, Moquin was still a little kitten, but now he looks so old. My lord, you must be a little surprised to see me like this. Moquin said cheerfully. I'm a little surprised indeed. Please follow me, sir. Moquin slowly moved his body and walked deeper into the house with Mao Tang. Mao Tang did not urge Moquin to walk faster. There is a small back door at the end of the house, which only cats can pass through. After passing by, there was an open-air ancestral hall. The whole hall was surrounded by barriers. Mao Tang looked at the ancestral hall and found it more and more familiar. Wasn't this where he lived in Wrongway Valley? When the last batch of cats in the Velvet Tail Valley were preparing to evacuate, we were afraid that one day you would find us and there would be no place for us to stay, so we dismantled your residence, packed it up and took it away, and rebuilt it in the empty area. We have been cleaning every day for so many years, hoping that you can move in directly when you return home, and everything will be exactly the same as before. Speaking of which, we have to thank the Konoha ninjas. Life in the empty quarter is indeed a bit monotonous. After moving to Konoha, everyone's life has become more exciting. When we settled down, Konoha even sent hundreds of ninjas to help build the house. All the work was completed in half a day. Including your ancestral hall, it was also rebuilt with their help. There was a yellowed scroll with many missing corners on the table in the ancestral hall. Mao Chuan took the scroll off the table and placed it in front of Mao Tang. Mao Tang asked, what is this? Moquin unfolded the scroll, and the broken pieces suddenly floated in the air and pieced together. Ink seeped out of the yellowed paper and solidified into the shape of a kitten. Welcome home in 17 different handwritings rose and fell in the ripples of the lake in the courtyard. The most childish handwriting even had crooked cat paw prints. In fact, I am still alive today because of the expectations of my tribe. Everyone wants to tell you in person that you are welcome home. No cat in the Velvet Tail Valley blames you for leaving at that time. But our lifespans are not comparable to yours. Over the years, many cats in the Velvet Valley have passed away one after another. Now I'm afraid you and I are the only ones in this world who still remember what the Velvet Valley looks like. Mao Chuan continued, the reason why Wrongway Valley became a holy place is because of your existence. You gave us a home when we were displaced. Maybe we are sensitive. We don't want you to feel guilty about the disappearance of Wrongway Valley. This is also the reason why I am still alive today. Mao Tang's emotions remained unchanged as he said, really? Mao Chuan, you should know that I don't care about these things, even if it means your death. Hehe, how can ordinary cats like us guess your true nature? But now that you are back, Moquin will die without regrets. I just hope you can take good care of the cats in the tribe. I'll go ahead. I haven't seen Xiaohei and the others for a long time. I wonder if they will scold me when we get to the other side. As he spoke, Mao Chuan's dim eyes completely lost their light, and he lay quietly beside Mao Tang, as if he had fallen asleep. Moquin passed away very peacefully. I don't know if it was because his parents were by his side, or because Xiaohei, as he called it, came to pick him up, but Moquin still had a smile on his face when he was dying. Xiaohei, it seems Xiaohei has passed away too. Mao Tang fell into memories. Xiaohei was the most lively cat in the tribe at that time. Maybe Mao Chuan was too thin and was often bullied by other cats. Xiaohei kept scolding the cat Mao Chuan for not living up to expectations, but he still protected Mao Chuan behind him. After recalling the past, Mao Tang looked at Mao Chuan's body and remained speechless for a long time. Then Mao Tang returned to his normal size, put Moquin on his back, and quickly arrived at the door of Konoha nursing home by stepping on the void. When Mao Tang approached, he saw Yujian who was trimming flowers and plants, and said, Yujian, I want to make a deal with you. Please revive this cat on my back. I know you are absolutely capable of doing it. Yujian put down the small scissors in her hand, sat cross-legged on the ground, looked at the cat on Mao Tang's back, looked up at Mao Tang and said, no problem, but what price do you want to pay? Mao Tang opened his mouth wide, and at the moment when Mao Tang opened his mouth, a vortex that looked very much like Kamui appeared in the void of his mouth. Mao Tang spat out all the gold that Tobirama had just given him, and said, this is all my worth. If it's not enough, I'll think of another way. If it doesn't work, I'll go borrow some from the big toad. Yujian waved her hand and said, that's enough. Put the cat on your back on the lawn. Mao Tang nodded, carefully placed Mao Chuan on the grass, and said, do you need me to step aside? Yujian said, no need, just watch. After that, Yujian put her hands on Moquin's still slightly warm body and directly performed the Jishin reincarnation. Moquin's heart, which had stopped beating, slowly started beating again, and even beat faster and faster, and even his old body gradually became younger. Mao Tang looked at Yujian who was resurrecting Mao Chuan and murmured, I really am not suitable for doing business. I am penniless again so quickly. After a while Mao Chuan opened his eyes and said, is this the world after death? I seem to hear Xiaohei's voice just now. Where is it? Just when Mao Chuan was confused and couldn't tell whether it was reality or illusion, a voice came, Xiaohei is not here, it's too early for you to look for him now. The more Mao Chuan listened to the voice, the more familiar it sounded. Wasn't it the voice of Lord Mao Tang? Mao Chuan quickly straightened up and said hastily, Lord Mao Tang, you, how come you are dead? Could it be that Konoha killed you? After hearing this, Mao Tang stretched out his claws and knocked Mao Chuan to the ground, saying, wake up quickly, I asked Yujian to revive you. Moquin reacted at this time and quickly turned over to thank Yujian. Suddenly, he found that his body was so flexible that he was even a little uncomfortable. Moquin could also guess that his body must be thanks to the human in front of him, so Moquin expressed his gratitude to Yujian and Mao Tang with tears in his eyes. Mao Tang is indeed a cat who says one thing and thinks another. He told Moquin that he had only resurrected it on a whim and Moquin didn't need to say thank you at all. Mao Tang's words might fool him, but they definitely couldn't fool Yujian and Mao Chuan. Yujian looked at Mao Tang and said, the deal is done. I'll take the gold. To put things in perspective, since Mao Tang paid the money and Yu Jian completed Mao Tang's requirements, the rewards belong to Yu Jian. Mao Tang felt very painful, but still watched Yu Jian seal the gold into the scroll. Then Yu Jian said, to be honest, this money is more than enough to revive a cat. If you have body tissues from other cats, I can also pull them out of the Pure Land, but you may have to wait for a while to fully revive them. At this time, Mao Tang was still a little hesitant. He was not sure whether to revive other cats. But Mokwon agreed immediately, and if possible, the other cats also wanted to see cat soup with their own eyes. Afterwards, Nekagawa took Tsukimi and Nikoya to the cemetery of the ninja cat clan. To be honest, these tombs were cut out as a whole by Madara and Hashirama Susanoo Buddha. Looking at the small group of tombstones in front of her, Yuejian recalled a memory of Shadow Clone robbing tombs. Thinking of her Shadow Clone, Yujian had a headache again. This erratic clone would hurt the enemy by 10,000 and she would suffer 80% of her own damage every time she used it. The enemy will be reduced to ashes in an instant and may not even feel the pain. But Yuejian has to endure a long period of social death and embarrassment, and sometimes she really can't tell which is more important. Then Mokwon dug up everyone's graves, sorted and packed the body tissues, and ran to Yuejian and Mao. Looking at Mokwon who had finished his work, Yuejian said, next, hold on to me and don't resist. I will take you to the mountain cemetery, where there are sacrifices for resurrection, and their true hope of resurrection lies there. Chapter 52. Using the Flying Thunder God technique, Yuejian brought Nikoyu and Nikokawa to the mountain cemetery, which was Black Zetsu's former home, but now it has become Itama's paradise. There were many stones on the land just above the Banjian laboratory. One of the stones was the password lock of the laboratory elevator. Yuejian put her hand on the stone, and a silver white light scanned Yuejian's palm. The stone split directly in the middle, revealing the cyberpunk-style elevator door. Yujian entered the elevator with the two cats. Soon the elevator door closed and the stones returned to their original state, as if everything that had just happened was an illusion. Before they even exited the elevator, Tsukimi and the others heard a quarrel between Itama and Tsukimi's Shadow Clone. Shadow Clone was sent by Tsukimi to protect Itama. After all, Itama's current strength is probably only at the level of Special JA. Nin. Although the real man fought 5 people alone in the first place, his strength was really average. Compared with Banjian's strength, his scientific research ability is among the best in the world. Banjian's current strength may not seem that great, but it is definitely promising in the future. At present, Banjian has not conducted human experiments on himself. If he does, his strength will definitely be amazing. It's just that the Hokage world doesn't have a mecha flow yet, otherwise Yujian would really be afraid that Itama would shout out, flesh and blood are weak, and machines will rise. When she got out of the elevator, Yujian saw her Shadow Clone and Itama arguing fiercely on the experimental table. Itama adjusted his glasses and said, the next most important step is to completely resolve the immune rejection reaction of Hashirama's cells. The serum you gave me last time was useless. If we don't overcome this problem, we will never be able to popularize the reagent. How should I put it? Itama is indeed a scientist. He treated his brother as a guinea pig when conducting research, and he was not polite to Tsukimi at all. The clone Yujian said, shut up, don't call me master, call me Darwin Yujian. This is the Shadow Sea Dragon I caught in the 10,000 meter deep sea of Auro the land of water. It has a heterologous chimeric enzyme in its body that can form a dynamic camouflage membrane, causing a cognitive paradox in the T-cell receptor. As he spoke, Darwin Yuejian, hereinafter referred to as Darjian, handed over a strange black fish with bulging eyes and barbs all over its body. Banjian's eyes lit up when he saw it and he said, I've heard of this kind of fish. It's said that it's almost extinct. Master, you actually found it. Alright, let's quickly draw blood. If this fish is away from its native environment for more than 72 hours, the heterologous chimeric enzyme will reversely decompose. If we were to say who was the most surprised person at the scene, it would be Yujian. He rubbed his eyes to confirm again whether the person in front of him was his Shadow Clone. Yujian himself basically didn't understand anything of the conversation between Itama and Daljian. Daljian was sent to protect Itama when Konoha Village was just established. Unexpectedly, after 30 years, Daljian finally became a person that even Yuejian himself was unfamiliar with. If Yujian removes Shadow Clone at this time, she will naturally master all the knowledge she has gained over the years, but Daljian's knowledge is too advanced for Yujian herself. Moreover, although the memories of more than 20 years will not make Yuejian's brain explode, they will still give Yuejian a headache for a long time. Besides, Yuejian herself is not engaged in research, so there is no need for her to receive these memories. Let Daljian continue his research. After the two of them finished drawing blood, they noticed that there were a few more people in the laboratory. Banjian, who was no longer in the experimental state, was still a normal person. He said to Yuejian respectfully, Master, why are you here? Darjian also said, Hey, old thief, what brings you here? Yujian rubbed his brows and said, I'm here to borrow some white zetsu. I need them as sacrifices for the impure world reincarnation. After hearing this, Banjian said, Follow me. Daljian and Banjian took Yuejian and others into the culture room. There was a huge tree in the middle of the culture room, with huge cocoons hanging on it. Banjian picked off many giant cocoons in a row, and said as he did so, Master, to be honest, these white zetsu are all excellent experimental materials, but such consumables will run out sooner or later. So, combined with Master Dal's advice, we used Big Brother's cells and the original white zetsu's body tissue to cultivate such a giant tree, which can automatically absorb natural energy to generate white zetsu. Yujian was stunned as she watched him talking non-stop. Is this scientific? Darjian seemed to have guessed what Yuejian was thinking and said, Don't ask, just ask about Hokage technology, kid. With the sacrifice, Yuejian asked Mokwon to separate the body tissues of each cat and arrange them in order. After completing the seal, he clapped his hands and said in a low voice, Immortal reincarnation technique. As Yujian shouted, black runes quickly spread on the ground, extending in all directions like tentacles in the darkness. The runes flashed with a strange dark light, raising clouds of dust wherever they passed. The white zetsu that were originally lying quietly on the ground began to tremble violently and let out painful roars. One by one, the white zetsu stood up straight. Their eyes were empty, their skin was pale, and their bodies were twisted and struggling. White scraps of paper kept emerging from the ground and wrapped them up. At the same time, a black halo also appeared at the place where the cat's body tissue was placed. In the light, white zetsu wrapped in confetti slowly disappeared, and the ninja cat covered with cracks gradually took shape. Cats of all kinds were squatting on the ground, their bodies covered with cracks that crisscrossed like a spider web, as if they would burst at any time. There is a weird aura in the eyes of these cats, their pupils are dark. It should have been a warm and lovely picture, but at this moment it is indescribably weird. Alright cat soup, the initial resurrection has been completed, go and chat with them. The reason why Yumi didn't use the panacea of a euro GSEI reincarnation was because these ninja cats no longer had complete bodies, only bones were left. Yumi had tried before and found that GSEI reincarnation could only be performed with a complete body, so in the future, if she wanted to resurrect these cats, she could only do so through reincarnation. While Cat Soup was reminiscing about the past with the cats from Wrongway Valley, Tsukimi began to inquire about the progress of the research on Hashirama's cells. By the way, Itama, how's your research going on with the project that I asked you to study about combining Hashirama's cells with other people? Banjian adjusted his glasses again and said, Master, I figured it out in the second year you gave me. I've been optimizing it for so long, but I still can't overcome the immune rejection reaction. Just tell me the result. After sorting out his thoughts, Banjian said, the product we have developed now is what I call the first generation life solution. This solution can allow the recipient to possess some of the characteristics of the Big Brother's immortal body, perform wood style, and increase chakra recovery speed and cell regeneration speed. But when we experimented with this reagent, the person who injected it had a very high probability of turning into a tree. One must have a very high physical strength to overcome this side effect. According to the experiments conducted by me and teacher Daljian, one must be at the level of cage to ensure that they do not turn into a tree. Those below the level of cage, including J.A. Nin, have a very high probability of turning into wood as long as they are injected. While they were talking, Banjian took out a small box from a refrigerator. Inside was 3 syringes filled with yellow-green solution. Itama said, there are only 3 first-generation life solutions at present. The rest were all consumed in the experiment. Master, you can inject these 3 reagents into Madara, Izuna, and me. Chapter 53. After getting the first-generation life solution, Tsukimi planned to quickly inject it to Madara, Izuna, and Tobirama, especially Madara. After injecting the life solution, over time, Madara should be able to open the Rinnegan, which is very useful for Yuejian. Tsukimi now has the eternal Mangekyo and the sage body, but there is no sign of her opening the Rinnegan, so after Madara opens the Rinnegan, she will be sent to Itama for study. It has been a long time since Tsukimi has used her Mangekyo technique. The most important thing is that Tsukimi plans to take Itaki and Obito from the current timeline to let them see her actions for themselves. Whoever sows the seeds will have to reap the consequences. Since Itaki slaughtered his entire clan and Obito killed his master and his mistress, the problem will be solved by the 2 people in the current timeline. Tsukimi thought that if she took the Obito of the present timeline to fight the masked Obito, when the masked Obito turned into a virtual being, Obito would also use Kamui and say some heartfelt words to the masked Obito, which was really sinister. Of course, for the other timeline, Tsukimi follows the principle of helping if possible. For example, if possible, Tsukimi plans to let 6 Paths Naruto save Jiraiya, which can be regarded as fulfilling her own idea. It's just that the 1-month cooldown time for the 2 pupil techniques is a bit troublesome, and the cooldown timer only starts when you return to your own timeline, but it's not a big deal. At this time, Yumi found that she had made a mistake. She should have sent Madara's cells to Itama for research. Wasn't there anything worth studying about Madara, who could fight back and forth with Hashirama? Then Yujian made up her mind to collect some of Madara's cells when she returned, and then let him inject the solution to prevent the sample from being contaminated. Seeing that Yujian was fine, Daljian and Itama went to study the Shadow Sea Dragon. The popularization of Hashirama's cells among the whole nation would depend on the effectiveness of the Shadow Sea Dragon. If this is achieved, Konoha can start trying to mass-produce Yamato. Although Yamato may have a low presence, its strength is not weak at all. He was originally an elite member of Anbu, and his strength should be that of an elite JA. Nin. However, the research cycle will definitely not be too short. It is estimated that we will have to wait for more than 10 or 20 years. When the Ninja World War breaks out again, Konoha will directly dispatch wood-style troops, sage jutsu troops and the like to carry out a dimensionality reduction attack. Then, watching the 2 people start their research, Yuejian brought Maotang and a group of cats back to Konoha Village. Maotang took his people back to the Ninja Cat commercial street first, and Yuejian took the small box and went directly to the Hokage building. When they arrived at the Hokage's office, only Tobirama and Izuna were inside. They stopped working when they saw Tsukimi coming. Yujian told the 2 about Itama's research results. They both had high expectations for Itama's research and the injection of life solution. As Hokage and assistants, Tobirama and Izuna both hope that Itama's research can be popularized, so that Konoha's strength will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. He brought Tobirama and Izuna to the Konoha nursing home. After following Tsukimi's orders, Tobirama extracted a part of Madara's body tissue and sealed it in a scroll. Then Yujian took out the first-generation life solution and had the 3 of them injected together. After injecting the solution, the 3 of them sat cross-legged and began to suppress the restless Hashirama cells. Tsukimi observed the injection of the 3 people. The physical conditions of Tobirama and Izuna were shocking. Their skin gradually became rough and hard, as if covered by a thick layer of bark. This strange change first began to spread from the limbs, and then quickly spread to the whole body, including the originally resolute and serious face. Today, their faces are no different from tree bark, with interlaced textures and uneven surfaces, which looks extremely terrifying. Despite this, the 2 still tenaciously endured the tremendous pain. They clenched their teeth, veins bulged on their foreheads, and beads of sweat slid down their cheeks, but they never uttered a groan or a cry. The distorted expressions revealed endless pain, but also showed their extraordinary tenacity. It can be seen that although the current situation is still within their tolerable range, every minute and every second is a torment for them. Yearn was watching closely from the side, calculating the time silently in her mind. Madara, on the other hand, seemed much more relaxed. Apart from some dry wrinkles on her skin, her condition was relatively stable. At this moment, Hashirama approached Tsukimi cautiously, scratching his head and avoiding her gaze. Master, I have something I want to ask you. Yearn turned to look at Hashirama and raised an eyebrow to signal him to continue. Hashirama hesitated for a long time before whispering, look, Madara is already so powerful. Can you research Madara's cell solution? I also want to become stronger. After saying that, he secretly glanced at Yearn's face. Just as Tsukimi was about to speak, Hashirama quickly waved his hand and added, if it's too much trouble, forget it, I'm just talking casually, hehe. The look of expectation and fear of being rejected made Tsukimi laugh. In front of outsiders, Madara and Hashirama are the men standing at the top of the ninja world, full of majesty. In Tsukimi's eyes, Hashirama and Madara seem to have never grown up, and are always the little boy skipping stones in the river. Yearn couldn't help but smile and said, I had this plan in mind. Here, this is Madara's cell. Send it to Benjian when you have time. Hashirama's eyes suddenly lit up, and he rubbed his hands excitedly and said, that's good, I'll leave now. After saying that, Hashirama ran away, probably because he was afraid that Madara would compete with him the first thing after waking up. The most terrifying thing for Hashirama was to be pinned to the ground and beaten by Madara, and the second most terrifying thing was to be mocked by Madara for being a wimp. If Madara injected his cell solution, the balance of combat power would tilt towards Madara. After a long time, the bark-like appearance on Tobirama and Izuna's faces gradually faded, and the tree-like appearance on their bodies gradually lessened. The two slowly opened their eyes, looked at each other, and saw a hint of relief in each other's eyes. However, Madara still sat on the ground and did not get up. Yearn was a little confused about this. Normally, shouldn't Madara complete the fusion first? After a while, Madara finally stood up and stretched his body. He felt a new force flowing in his body. Madara opened his hands and a small sapling emerged. Moreover, Yearn discovered that there were actually some purple threads in Madara's eyes, which could not be seen without careful observation. Yearn's heart moved. Could this be a sign that the Samsara Eye will soon be activated? However, Tsukimi estimated that it might take Madara a long time to open the Rinnegan. Although the cell solution developed by Itama was much stronger than Madara's direct cell transplant at that time, Madara opened the Rinnegan when he was about to be buried, so Tsukimi estimated that she would not be able to see the Rinnegan in the near future. Looking at those people, Yearn thought that the fusion of Hashirama's cells indeed had many uncontrollable factors, and future injections must be more cautious. Tobirama and Izuna also realized that even though this power is powerful, there is still a long way to go before it can be truly popularized. Madara had deep eyes, as if she was thinking about this new power and future plans. The first step was to beat up the Hassie hot mom first. Madara looked around and didn't see Hashirama, so she asked in confusion, Master, have you seen this guy Hasalama? Tsukimi waved her hand to indicate that she didn't know. After all, it was not appropriate for her to get involved in the affairs of these two people. Then Madara rushed out of the door and began the long journey to find Hashirama. Chapter 54. A few days after Madara and the others injected the life solution, Yukino went out to train alone. At this time, Tsunade, Jiraiya and Orochimaru were either training in the Holy Land or undergoing the test of the Holy Land. Only Yukino had nothing specific to do at the moment. Guang has been accompanying Yukino in practice these days, but Yukino's practice condition is obviously not good, so Guang simply let Yukino rest for a few days to adjust her mood. But Yukino was still a little stubborn. She felt that her team members might become stronger than herself after their training, so even if she was just allowed to rest, Yukino was still stubborn and insisted on practicing alone. On the way to the training ground, Yukino passed by the Ninja Cat commercial street. She heard from the elders in the clan that the Ninja Cat clan seemed to have moved to Konoha, and that they no longer had to go to the empty area to look for Ninja Cats, they could just stay in Konoha. Although Yukino had heard about this, she had never been to Ninja Cat shopping street. She happened to pass by there today, so she went to take a look and see what was there. There is a shelf at the entrance of the commercial street, which is full of cat ear decorations. The Ninja Cat clan likes people wearing cat ear decorations very much. Anyone wearing cat ear decorations can get a 95% discount when entering the commercial street. After all, we are doing business, and it would be a bit disadvantageous to give too high a discount, but to be honest, 95% off is a very good discount. When Suano saw the shelves full of cat ear decorations, her heart was moved. She particularly noticed a pair of white and pink cat ears, which were so cute and furry. Suano couldn't help but pick it up and put it on her head. She looked at herself in the mirror and found that she looked a little more playful. As soon as she walked into the commercial street, the surrounding ninja cats cast friendly glances at her. A little ninja cat ran over and kept rubbing against Yukino's legs. Yukino squatted down, gently touched the little ninja cat's head, and started playing with it. While playing with the little ninja cat, Yukino felt that the pressure in her heart dissipated a little, and the irritability caused by her poor training state also disappeared. She realized that perhaps proper relaxation would be more conducive to improving her strength. After playing for a while, Yukino said goodbye to the little ninja cat and decided to follow Guang's advice to have a good rest and adjust her mood. She simply walked around the commercial street with an empty mind and body. After Yukino walked into the Ninja Cat commercial street, she saw a wide variety of shops on both sides of the street. She first walked into a ninja tool store. Most of the ninja tools in the store were no different from those in other shops, but a small number of them had cat paw prints engraved on them, which not only looked good but also had an anti-slip effect. The owner was a big white cat, lying lazily on the counter. When it saw Yukino come in, it raised its eyelids. Yukino picked up a special kunao out of curiosity. There were delicate patterns engraved on the kunao, and it emitted faint chakra fluctuations. She didn't expect that this ordinary kunao was actually mixed with some chakra metal. Yukino looked at the price and found that it was indeed much more expensive than other ordinary kunao. But Yukino didn't lack the money, so she bought the kunao and put it into her ninja tool bag. This kind of kunao is highly conductive to lightning style and may be effective when used in some special scenarios. After all, many ninjas think that kunao is just an ordinary ninja tool, so they are less wary of it. After Yukino left, the big white cat breathed a sigh of relief. Its laziness just now was all pretended. In fact, it was extremely nervous. This kunao was made on a whim, and it was thought that it could be sold quickly, but no one bought it. Unexpectedly, as time went by, this kunao almost became the treasure of the store. The big white cat didn't cheat Yukino, but gave her some discounts. At least Yukino was quite happy with the purchase. Then, she came to a small shop selling detonating talismans. The detonating talismans here also had cat paws printed on them, which were cute and powerful. Just as she was about to leave the store, she heard a bustling noise coming from the side. It turned out to be a newly opened ninja cat food restaurant, with tempting aroma wafting from it. Yukino's stomach growled and she couldn't help but walk in. The decoration inside the store is full of cat elements, and portraits of various ninja cats are hung on the walls. Yukino ordered a special fish cake, and as she ate the delicious food, her tense nerves completely relaxed. At this moment, a kitten jumped onto Yukino's table. This kitten looked like a tortoise-shell cat, but its pattern was blue and black, somewhat similar to Matatabi. The kitten said, "Sister, can you give me some fish cakes?" Yukino smiled and gave half of the fish cake on the plate to the kitten. The kitten ate happily and said, "Thank you, sister. My name is Nekanashuk." Yukino thought Nekanashuk was quite interesting, so she introduced herself to him, and they ate and talked with the cat, and surprisingly they got along very well. Not long after, a larger ninja cat came over. It turned out to be Nekawa, and Nekanashuk was Nekawa's youngest descendant. Nekawa looked at Nekanashuk lovingly and said, "It's time to go home, Nekanashuk." However, Nekanashuk pulled Yukino's clothes and said, "Sister, please go home and play with me." Yukino hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed. Nikokawa took Yukino and Nekanashuk to the deepest part of the commercial street. Along the way, Yukino looked around curiously. Soon, they arrived at Ninja Cat's residence. Kui came out to greet them warmly, asked Sueno to sit down, and brought out special snacks. Yukino tasted it and found it to be unique and wonderful. At this time, Mao Tang just walked out of the ancestral hall. When he saw Yukino, his eyes instantly became sharp and puzzled. After a moment, he slowly said, "There is a familiar smell on you, are you Madara's granddaughter?" Sueno was stunned. She didn't expect that someone here would recognize her identity. But she was not flustered and nodded generously. Niko Tang circled around Yukino, smacked his lips and said, "We, the Ninja Cat clan, owe your grandfather a small favor. How about this, why don't you learn Sage Jutsu from me?" Sueno's eyes lit up and she quickly thanked him and accepted the offer. Nekanashuk jumped up excitedly, "That's great, Sister Yukino can learn Sage Jutsu with me." Nekanashuk, as Nekagawa's junior, is currently the most talented cat among the Ninja Cat clan. He was selected by Nikoyu just the day before yesterday and began to learn Sage Jutsu from Nikoyu. Just now, Nekagawa asked Nekanashuk to go home and practice. The next day, Yukino and Nekanashuk arrived at the place designated by Cat Soup early, and it turned out to be the Forest of Death. The Death Forest was shrouded in mist and filled with a mysterious atmosphere. Mao Tang stood in the center of the Death Forest and said seriously, "It is not easy to practice Sage Jutsu. You must first feel the power of nature." Then he guided the two to close their eyes and meditate. Yukino calmed down and tried to communicate with the natural energy around her. At first, the energies were like naughty elves running around, but gradually, she was able to catch a trace of them. The situation on Nekanashuk's side is also very good. The Sage Jutsu it practices is different from Yukino's. After a few days, Yukino made rapid progress and was able to initially guide the power of nature into her body, but she was still a long way from mastering Sage Jutsu. Mao Tang nodded with satisfaction, "Xuanai, you really have a good understanding." These days, after Yukino asked Tsukimi, she has signed a psychic contract with Nekanashuk. Finally, Yukino's heart is at ease. At least she will not be left behind by her friends. Then Yukino lived a peaceful but not boring training life until the Chunin exam came. Chapter 55. There were still 5 days before the Chunin exam, and Tsukimi brought Tsunade and the others back from the Holy Land. Tsukimi kept her promise and brought some delicious food and various rare vegetables to Katsuyu. Katsuyu was very happy with Tsukimi's behavior. Of course, Yuejian did not favor one over the other and also brought some local specialties to the other 2 holy places. 2 days before the Chunin exam, Tsukimi went to the Hokage building to hand in several registration forms. Unexpectedly, she received an unexpected news from Tobirama. This time, the Chunin exam was actually organized by the 5 major countries, and the exam location was set in Konoha Village. The reason why the other 4 countries want to see organize the Chunin examination with Konoha is, firstly, to find out the strength of Konoha. At present, even if we put aside Madara and Hashirama, the strongest comprehensive strength in the ninja world is still Konoha Village, so the other 4 countries are very curious about the true strength of Konoha. The second is to verify whether Madara and Hashirama are dead or alive. This is very important and is related to the future development strategies of various countries. Knowing this, Tsukimi was not worried. After all, the strength of Tobirama and Izuna was incomparable now. Even if the cages from other villages attacked them directly, they would not be at a disadvantage. But as Mokun said, if this situation really happened, Konoha would definitely suffer heavy casualties. This exam is equivalent to an alternative 5-cage summit, and the cage and contestants from each village will arrive in Konoha Village tomorrow morning. At the same time, Tobirama has received some information in advance that the results of this Chunin exam may affect the future resource allocation of the 5 major countries. Because second Mizukage Hoshiki and second Tsuchikage met by chance a few days ago, and they were extremely jealous of each other when they met as enemies, but as the heads of the village, it was not easy for the 2 to attack each other directly, otherwise the consequences might be unpredictable. So the 2 of them made a bet during the Chunin exam, to see which village had more ninjas passing the Chunin exam, and the loser would have to give the other a sum of money. It was originally a bet between two people, but in the end, unexpectedly, the Hidden Cloud Village and the Hidden Sand Village also got involved. Now that all four villages have participated in the bet, Konoha has no choice but to join, so this Chunin exam is not just a simple exam, it is also related to resource allocation. The fourth place winner shall give 20 million taels to the second place winner, and the fifth place winner shall give 50 million taels to the first place winner. The cost of this bet is not small, so Tobirama is very concerned about it. Because there are only 24 places for each village in this exam, those who want to participate must be the elite among the genin. Tobirama and Izuna have been considering the selection of personnel for several days. However, what made Tobirama happiest was that Konoha Village had already decided on 4 winning seats, so Tobirama was still very relieved about Tsukimi's students. Tobirama had asked several people in advance. Apart from anything else, the summoning beasts of these 4 people were extraordinary. Tsunade directly summoned the sage Katsuyu. Although the size of the summoned clone was average because Tsunade's chakra was not too large, it was still no problem to treat the 4 people and transmit information. Besides, Katsuyu was also very aggressive and could kill them with a spray of acid. Tobirama heard that Orochimaru signed a contract with Manda of Ryokai Cave. Although Manda has not fully grown up yet, its strength is definitely much stronger than that of ordinary Chunin. Jiraiya seems to have a good relationship with Gamabunta of Mount Maya. Boku, who is good with a short sword and is only slightly weaker than Manja. And Yukino's summoning beast is also extraordinary. Now Rongwei has reappeared in Konoha, and Nekonosuke is the most talented cat of the new generation of Rongwei. The ninjutsu that allows Katsup to change its body size at will has been given to Nekonosuke. Now Nekonosuke has considerable combat power, but the larger his body is, the more chakra he needs. Yujian asked curiously, do you have any information about stronger players from other villages? Izuna said, yes. Then he took out a booklet from the drawer, which listed the stronger players from several ninja villages, including Konoha itself. Konohagakure village in Yuzukakuraga, male, cooperates with the ninja dog Himura to perform orc clones, and his sense of smell is 3 times that of ordinary ninjas. Uchiha Kagami, male, owner of the 2 Megatama Sharingan, has copied many kinds of taijutsu, strong overall strength. A bear may Blackwing, male, drives a swarm of poisonous mosquitoes that can absorb chakra. At the same time, it can share the perception of mosquitoes, but will be restrained by fire-style Kurama Genku, female, Genjutsu controls the 5 senses of others, needs to prepare pigments in advance for Genjutsu painting, takes 10 seconds to paint and activate Genjutsu, ability may be restrained in rainy days. Sagakure village female, a genius in sand manipulation, skilled in using the eye of sand, which can form a kilometer-level observation network. Scorpion Maru, male, puppet. Master, his puppet is called Red Secret 100 Scorpion, he can release hundreds of poisonous thousands at the same time, and can also trap the enemy in the puppet's wohi, female, Scorch style bloodline limit owner, can instantly vaporize the opponent's body. Water Feng Xin, male, good at using wind escape, can control air pressure to form invisible wind blades. The Hidden Mist Village Mizunozuki Frost, female, possessor of ice style Kekii Genkai, can quickly create extremely low temperatures to restrain most large-scale water style ninjutsu, and can also manipulate ice style attacks. Terumi Maihi, male, owner of lava style bloodline limit, can release a highly corrosive viscous liquid that can corrode most objects. Kido Sorizuki, female, masters the Mirage technique, good at creating group hallucinations. Baibo, male, mastered water style. Rain Tiger technique, infinite teleportation in the rain but consumes blood. Union Village Yayutai, male, lightning style. Black cloud summoning, summons a thunderstorm covering a range of 50 meters, but attacks indiscriminately, and the power will be stronger in thunderstorm weather. Flash, female, mastered the special lightning body, leaving a charged clone in the same place to interfere with the enemy. Thunderball, male, strong in physical skills, lightning style stimulates acupuncture points to gain higher speed and strength. Rhea, male, lightning style dual dagger style, has a paralysis effect when stabbing, 900-degree myopia, it is recommended to attack his glasses first. Iwagakure village Iwatari, male, defensive ninja, mastered the special earth style hardening technique, and granite textures appear on his skin when defending. Lua, female, earth style. Land vein perception, can analyze the terrain within a kilometer by the ground under her feet. Tokinuma, male, mud style bloodline limit owner, tactical control type ninja, uses mud to create clones, which will bind the opponent after being broken. Obsidian, male, explosive ninjutsu, crystal dust explosion, can control obsidian fragments to blast at a specific point. Looking at the information handed over by Izuna, Tsukimi was quite surprised. These were considered the future pillars of each village. She didn't expect the information obtained to be so detailed. It seemed that Konoha's infiltration work had been done very well in recent years. Afterwards, Tsukimi told Tsunade and the others the information about the Chunin exam, and also gave them the information about the ninjas from other villages. Unexpectedly, these people were not worried at all about this, and even wanted to see the strength of the ninjas from other villages. The next morning, at the entrance of Konoha village, the guarding ninjas stood like statues with grim eyes. Soon, shadows from each village came with their own contestants, walking steadily towards them. The team from the Hidden Cloud village marched in neat and powerful steps. The second-generation Kazekage shaman had a serious look on his face, followed by the genins from the Hidden Sand village who were taking the exam. Second Tsuchikage Wuse had a stern expression, and the young ninjas from the Uegakure village around him had firm eyes. Second Mizukage Hoshiki was extremely alert, constantly looking around, as if some monster was about to appear at the next moment. Tobirama led the Konoha's top leaders to greet them with a polite smile on his face. After exchanging a few pleasantries, each shadow and his men were arranged to their respective residences. Along the way, ninjas from various villages observed Konoha village curiously. The villagers of Konoha also poked their heads out to look, whispering about these ninjas from other countries. Tsunade and others hid in the corner and peeked. Tsunade clenched her fists excitedly and whispered, "They all seem very strong. I can't wait to fight them." The others were also full of anticipation, waiting for the exam the next day. Chapter 56. After watching the ninjas from various villages enter the ninja village, Team 7 came together to the number 7 training ground to discuss tactics. The number 7 training ground had a special meaning for them, as the 4 of them became genin here. After a detailed discussion, several people quickly agreed on tactics. First of all, the ninjas of the sand village are good at puppetry and manipulating sand, especially Seo, who is a genius in sand manipulation. When fighting, they mostly use the geographical environment to hide their bodies, so you have to destroy the sandy terrain first, or simply avoid fighting them in the sand. The ninjas of the Hidden Mist village are good at water style and silent assassination. They often move in thick fog and can use wind escape to create strong winds to disperse the fog. They also arrange sensory ninjas to guard the surroundings. The ninjas of the Hidden Cloud village have powerful physical skills and are extremely fast, and often use lightning style to enhance their attacks. To deal with these reckless people, you can set up some traps in advance to limit their movement speed. The Uegakuer village is good at earth style and explosion techniques, so they will definitely build strong fortifications or launch underground raids during battles. It would be best if you could break through and destroy their defenses, or you can try to use Genjutsu to find a breakthrough. After the discussion, Tsunade clapped her hands and said, "It's settled. Let's prepare according to the plan. Otherwise, we can go buy some ninja tools together. Since the exam is coming up, we can replace the worn-out ninja tools." As soon as Tsunade finished speaking, Yukino invited everyone to go shopping in the Ninja Cat commercial street. After all, Yukino had a very good relationship with the Ninja Cat clan, so it was understandable that she could attract some business for them. Besides, the things bought from Ninako are of good quality, and the price will be even more affordable if you bring cat earrings. So everyone followed Yukino to the Ninja Cat shopping street. The streets are lined with all kinds of ninja tools. When talking about the discount on cat earrings, Jiraiya was the first to pick up a pair of cat earrings and put them on, and joked that it would be fun for Orochimaru to wear them. Yukino took out a pair of exquisite cat ears from her backpack with ease and put them on herself. The earrings in Ninja Cat shopping street are all brand new and can be taken away after wearing, so Yukino kept the earrings in her bag. Tsunade hesitantly picked up a pair of delicate earrings, muttering to herself that they felt a bit childish. Orochimaru was also reluctant, but after Jiraiya kept saying that it was nice to change the style occasionally, and Yukino assured him that it would look good on him, the two finally put it on. Yukino led everyone into a store with familiarity. The wide variety of goods in the store is dazzling. The owner was still the fat white cat, and he greeted Yukino warmly when he saw her. Several people started to choose ninja tools. Orochimaru took a fancy to a short sword, while Jiraiya was obsessed with a scroll that could change its shape. Tsunade picked out some medical supplies. Then a few people paid their bills and left Ninja Cat shopping street. The next morning, several people went to take the first exam, which was a written test. After everyone entered the examination room, they found a seat and sat down. The examiner announced the start of the exam, only to see the test paper was blank and many candidates around him looked puzzled. At this time, the examiner saw that everyone's emotions were almost brewing, so he began to announce the exam rules. First of all, the exam consists of 10 questions. Each ninja village will give 2 questions. Each question has a small genjutsu covering it. Only when you solve the genjutsu questions can they appear. The process of solving genjutsu cannot be done by brute force, such as tearing up the test paper. If the test paper is damaged, the result will be considered invalid. After the examiner announced the rules, some candidates began to whine. After all, some nin were not good at genjutsu, let alone this bunch of genin. However, the members of Team 7 remained calm. Tsunade, Yukino, and Orochimaru were all good at genjutsu, and Jiraiya was fearless because he had 3 teammates who were good at genjutsu. Having said that, Jiraiya's genjutsu level is pretty good, and it is more than enough for him to crack these genjutsu. Yukino closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, she had turned into Sharingan. After all, the genjutsu in the exam was not very difficult. Yukino quickly found the note of the genjutsu and released it, and was the first to see the question. She quietly signaled to her companions. Tsunade was not to be outdone and used her chakra perception to quickly break through the genjutsu. Orochimaru and Jiraiya were a little slower, but they also solved the problem successfully. When Tsunade was solving the problem, an eyeball made of sand suddenly appeared in front of her. Seo wanted to blind Tsunade's eyes with sand, but she didn't expect that when she just made a move, Tsunade crushed the eye of sand with her bare hands. The rest of the exams also required different skills. If you could crack the questions, you would crack them directly. If you couldn't crack the questions, you would try to cheat. If you couldn't crack the questions, you would either try to get the answers or wait for help from your teammates. Soon all 4 students in Class 7 completed the exam, but in order to ensure that they would qualify, they tried every possible way to pass on the answers. Yukino gave a signal and Tsunade started writing and drawing on the table. Yukino kept staring at Tsunade's movements and her right hand actually moved along with Tsunade. Using the same method, Yukino collected answers from 3 other candidates and other candidates who seemed to be doing well. After integrating all the answers, Yukino came up with what she thought was a perfect score. Then 4 very tiny snakes slipped out from under Orochimaru's feet. 3 of them came to the tables of Yukino, Tsunade, and Jiraiya respectively. The little snakes opened their mouths and spit out an extremely miniature Katsuyu. Orochimaru and others placed Katsuyu on their earlobes, and a small walkie-talkie was born. Katsuyu could also recognize text and patterns. Yukino let Katsuyu place it behind the forehead protector, with just a small head exposed, like a hidden camera. With Katsuyu's guidance, the other 3 quickly corrected the errors. The 4 people who completed the exam were not without things to do. This was a good opportunity to reduce the opponent's chances. At this moment, Jiraiya kept looking at other candidates, and suddenly when one of the candidates passed on the answer, Jiraiya noticed it. Jiraiya immediately raised his hand and said, "Report to the examiner, those 2 people are cheating." Soon the examiner expelled the 2 people. The examiner was actually very clear whether everyone present cheated or not, and the examiner would not care as long as the means were not stupid to a certain extent. But if you are reported, things will be different. Everyone present is an opponent. If your opponent finds out about your little trick, you will be dead soon. This level is not enough to become a Chunin. Ever since Jiraiya reported it, the entire atmosphere in the examination room has changed. Cheaters have to use more sophisticated methods to pass on information, and those who complete the exam or give up will find ways to report them. The exam was completed quickly, and Jiraiya did eliminate many competitors through reporting, but several of the strongest competitors from the ninja villages still stood to the end. The examiner collected all the test papers and left first. The results will be announced the next morning. All test papers will be graded by the 5 major ninja villages together. If you have any objections, you can submit an application before the end of the announcement. The examiner also announced the time and location of the next exam. The second exam was a survival competition, which would be held the day after the results were announced, and would be held in the Death Forest. After saying that, the examiner used a teleportation technique and left. At this time, Tsunade, Yukino and Orochimaru had already walked to the door, while Jiraiya was still sitting in his seat, recalling his heroic performance just now. He was about to show off with Tsunade and the others, but he didn't expect that the 3 of them had already left. Jiraiya muttered, "Why are you running so fast?" Suddenly, a pair of hands slammed on Jiraiya's desk. Jiraiya looked up and saw more than a dozen people standing densely in front of him. Most of them were reported by himself, and a small number were reported by others due to Jiraiya's influence. Seeing the crowd rubbing their hands in anticipation, Jiraiya said, calm down, it's just the Chunin exam, right? You can come back in 3 years at most." Jiraiya's words obviously had the opposite effect, and the leader waved his arm and said, "Beat him." Jiraiya, no. Chapter 57. Early in the morning, Tsunade ran from the Senjo clan's territory to the Uchiha clan's territory. The Uchiha clan was not surprised at Tsunade's arrival. Tsunade and Yukino had been friends since childhood and had visited the Uchiha clan many times over the years. The Uchiha clan also liked this lively girl with blonde hair. "It's Tsunade, are you here to play with Yukino again? She shouldn't be up yet, go find her directly." "Good morning, Uncle Wildfire, I'll be in now." Go ahead. Walk slowly. Be careful not to fall." As soon as Uchiha Wildfire finished speaking, Tsunade trotted into the Uchiha territory. Many Uchiha people had already gotten up early in the morning and were preparing to go to work on the guard team. The Uchiha clan still controls the security team, but they are gentle and fair. Of course, if there are people who disobey discipline, the security team will still enforce the law violently without any ambiguity. The villagers are not fools either. They have a good impression of the security team members who are dedicated to serving the villagers. From time to time, the security team members receive small gifts from the villagers during patrols. In addition, the Uchiha clan are very emotional. After receiving the gifts, each one is happier than the other. They take their work more seriously and pay great attention to the feelings of the villagers in their daily work. As a result, the Konoha guard is not only not hated by the villagers, but is welcomed by the majority of them. Nowadays, many young Uchiha are proud to join the guard team and serve the villagers. Soon Tsunade broke into Yukino's house. At this time, Guang was making breakfast. Now that Madara was not in the nursing home, Guang returned home to live. "Tsunade-chan, you're here. Yukino is sleeping in the room. Please wake her up. This girl is hard to wake up every day." When Tsunade heard this, she immediately nodded, carefully opened Yukino's door, and tiptoed in. Looking at Yukino sleeping soundly on the tatami, Tsunade gently pinched her quilt, pulled it hard, and shouted, "Yukino, get up, we have to check the results." Yukino didn't want to get up, but Tsunade kept harassing her, so she got up reluctantly. After the two finished their meal and said goodbye to Hikari, they went downstairs in the Hokage building to look at the notice. At this time, the downstairs of the Hokage building was already full of people. Jiraiya and Orochimaru had already looked at the results. They guessed that Yukino and Tsunade would be here soon, so they told them the results directly to save them from squeezing. As expected, the 4 of them took the top 4 places. After all, their cheating method was too advanced. The survival competition will be held tomorrow, and friction between the teams is inevitable, so several people are preparing to conduct confrontational training. As for finding Yuji to practice, the few of them felt that there was no need to disturb the teacher at the moment. Normal people have no way to sign a contract with the Holy Land or practice sage jutsu. Yuejian has already provided me with such a good platform that I should not bother the teacher unless it is necessary. Just as the 4 of them were heading to the training ground, the 4 cages in the Konoha guest house actually sat together. Second Raikage AI said, "How about it, did you sense the presence of Madara and Hashirama?" Second generation Kazekage Shaman shook his head. Shaman was a very qualified Kazekage, the founder of puppetry and sand manipulation skills, with penultimate's foresight ability and accurate judgment of future situations. This time, the monk also wanted to investigate the situation of Madara and Hashirama. Whether the two were dead or alive would seriously affect the future development direction of the sand village. The second Tsuchikage replied, "Why don't you ask the mustache guy? He has the best perception among us." After Wu finished speaking, everyone stared at Hoseki Gengetsu. Hoseki Gengetsu felt scared and said, "Why are you all looking at me? I am here to bring the new ninjas in the village to take the Chunin exam." Wu added fuel to the fire, "Little mustache, don't tell me you didn't investigate secretly. How could someone as sinister as you be so obedient as to take an exam?" Gui Denghuan Yu also became angry and immediately asked, "What? Bandage man, do I have to report to you when I do something?" Seeing that the atmosphere between the two was becoming increasingly tense, AI and Shaman hurried to smooth things over. Although they both hoped that Huang Yu and Wu would fight in Konoha, they were here now and would be implicated if anything unexpected happened. Afterwards, the 4 of them sat together again. Hoseki Huang Yu snorted coldly, "Anyway, I didn't notice the existence of Madara and Hashirama at all these days. That's all I have to say. Goodbye." After saying that, Hoseki Huang Yu left first. He really wanted to beat Wu up when he saw him, which only added to his anger. Wu watched Hoseki Huang Yu walk away and said, "Since the little mustache man didn't notice their presence, it seems that Madara and Hashirama are really dead." As Hoseki Huanyu's opponent for many years, Wu knew clearly how powerful Huanyu's perception was. What he said was basically right. However, the four of them had no idea how terrifying the barriers in Konoha's nursing home were, and besides, Madara and Hashirama were definitely not in the village now. Normally, the strongest fighter in a village would definitely stay in the village. Who would have thought that Hashirama and Madara would play the game of him chasing and him escaping? At the same time, after Tsunade and the others arrived at the training ground, they quickly divided into two groups and began competitive practice. Yukino and Tsunade are in one group, Jiraiya and Orochimaru are in one group. At the very beginning, Tsunade displayed a fierce offensive and attacked Jiraiya. She was agile and her attacks were wide and wide. Yukino was looking for opportunities to assist Tsunade, looking like a ghost. Jiraiya and Orochimaru were not to be outdone, and they cooperated with each other in perfect harmony. Orochimaru released some small snake-like ninjutsu to distract Yukino's sight, and Jiraiya took the opportunity to use the raised nan to rush towards Yukino. But Yukino was prepared and dodged it easily by leaning to the side, while counterattacking with a great fireball shot at Jiraiya. When the two sides were fighting fiercely, Yukino quickly formed seals with her hands and shouted, "Summoning technique." A huge ninja cat suddenly appeared, and Yukino jumped lightly onto the head of Nekono shook, looking down at the enemy from above. Seeing this, Tsunade was not willing to be outdone, and also performed summoning techniques, landing steadily on Katsuyu's head. Jiraiya and Orochimaru on the opposite side looked at each other and shouted in unison, "Summoning technique." In the smoke, Jiraiya summoned Gamabunta from Mount Maya. Boku, while Orochimaru summoned 10,000 snakes. They also stood on the heads of their own spirit beasts. In the original novel, Tsunade and the other two were unable to defeat Hanzo together, and in the end, Hanzo gave them the shameful name of Sunin. At this time, the four holy places gathered together again, which was somewhat like the future. When the four of them went to fight Hanzo together in the future, perhaps the title of the four ninjas would be a compliment rather than a mockery. Four pairs of eyes looked at each other, and the fighting atmosphere became more intense. Nekono shook took the lead in attacking, pouncing towards Gamabunta, his sharp claws flashing cold light in the air. Gamabunta opened his mouth and spit out a powerful stream of water to meet the attack. At the same time, Wan Shi rushed towards Katsuyu and the two became entangled. What made Jiraiya and Orochimaru feel fortunate was that Bunta and Manda did not fight at the first moment. Manda was actually in a good temper now. No one knew what happened in the future that made Manda so irritable. Yukino and Tsunade worked in perfect harmony, constantly directing the summoned beasts to change tactics. Jiraiya and Orochimaru also responded with all their strength. For a while, the training ground was full of dust and the fight was quite exciting. Before long, the chakras of several people were almost gone, and they released their summoned beasts one after another. The four of them just lay on the ground in an ungraceful manner and laughed. Soon it was the next morning and the survival competition began. Chapter 58. Next, I will announce the rules of the second round of the Chunin exam, the survival round. First, each team is fully staffed with 4 members, and initially possesses one of the earth coiling axes. There are also some scrolls of the 5 attributes of thunder, wood, water, wind, and earth scattered throughout the death forest. All teams must collect all 7 scrolls to qualify for promotion. Teams that qualify for promotion will automatically be promoted if they enter the central tower before 10 AM tomorrow. Second, the death forest has been transformed by the joint efforts of the 5 major countries. It has terrains corresponding to each village. The terrains are random at the beginning, but during the test, you can go to the appropriate terrain to fight. Third, all players will have 1,000 taels of silver notes at the beginning. Players can buy 5 attribute scrolls from the merchant played by Anbu. Each scroll costs 1,000 taels. Players cannot use their team's silver notes to buy them. Friendly reminder, Anbu merchants have some special interactions, you can explore them on your own. If you are confident in your own strength, you can also try to snatch the scroll from the merchant. Finally, I declare that the second round of the Chunin exam, the survival round, has officially begun. The same sound echoed in the 5 directions of the death forest. The corresponding venues in the 5 areas were different. The efforts of the 5 ninja villages in transforming the death forest were not small. The results after the transformation would undoubtedly be beneficial to Konoha's future training. Of course, this was the condition that Tobirama proposed at the time for the other 4 ninja villages who wanted to come to Konoha to take part in the Chunin exam. In order to be able to obtain information, except for Gengetsu, the other cages gritted their teeth and agreed. And Huangyu discovered a magical thing. He had been worried for some reason recently, but later he realized that helping Konoha would actually make him feel a little more at ease. Perhaps due to the effect of Madara's Sharingan Genjutsu, Huangyu did not notice anything unusual about the situation, and instead arranged the venue with peace of mind. Tsunade and her companions were very lucky. When they drew lots in advance, the terrain they drew was the most common forest in the Land of Fire, which was very suitable for their actions. After entering, Class 7 began to be on alert. The rules of this survival competition required at least half of the people to be eliminated. One could imagine how intense this fight would be. At the same time, several people from the Sand Village were also assigned to the terrain of the Land of Fire. Hey, Tokinuma, if I remember correctly, the seed teams of Konoha and Kumagakure are in our area. Luwa said casually as he walked. As a perception-type ninja, Luwa was quite sure whether there were other ninjas around. At this moment, she was sure that there were no enemies around, so she was relatively relaxed. Tokinuma was the think tank of the team and served as the brain of the team. He said, Luwa, don't let your guard down. If the enemy is good at hiding their aura, we may be ambushed. The most important thing right now is to quickly collect the 5 attribute scrolls and find a way to snatch the earth coiling axis. Our team's frontal combat capability is relatively weak. Listen to my arrangements from now on. Luwa, use your full power to sense the earth veins and see if there are any 5 attribute scrolls within 1,000 meters underground. At the same time, look for some good blasting points, and Heiyeo will set up some obsidian bombs. Yankai, you stay here to protect Luwa. I'll go with Heiyeo. Once Luwa and Heiyeo's chakras are restored, we'll go to the next area. If we're lucky, we might be able to get the scroll right away. After Tokinuma finished speaking, several people started to act. Luo put his hands on the ground, closed his eyes and spoke slowly. At 2 o'clock, place a bomb under the tree 300 meters away. At 7 o'clock, there is a slope 200 meters away where a large number of bombs can be placed. It is very easy for the enemy to pass through that area. As soon as Luo finished speaking, Tokinuma and Heiyeo started to act. They first came to the big tree that Luo had just mentioned. Tokinuma stretched out his hand to touch the ground, and the solid land turned into mud. Heiyeo took out 2 obsidians from his backpack, injected chakra into them and placed them in the mud. Seeing that Heiyao had completed the task, Tokinuma cancelled the chakra supply, and the sludge slowly returned to its original state. Just like that, as Luo continued to speak, the two of them rushed around, and soon they turned an area of a 1 kilometer into a minefield. At this time, Yangtze stood upright beside Luo like a sculpture, protecting her. After a while, Luo uttered a soft hum and said, "In Tokinuma, at 12 o'clock, 400 meters underground, about 3 meters deep, there seems to be a scroll there. I can't sense it clearly, go and take a look." Upon hearing this, Tokinuma rushed over immediately, turned himself into mud and drilled directly into the ground. Soon Tokinuma came out holding a scroll, and when he opened it, he saw that it was a scroll with thunder attribute. Tokinuma said, "It seems that our luck is still very good." Just when the few of them had almost finished exploring the place and were about to leave, Luo sensed that several ninjas had entered the minefield, and Tokinuma couldn't help but sigh that their luck was really good. The people who came were ninjas from the Sand Village. The team configuration was very reasonable, with a puppeteer, a medical ninja, and 2 balanced genins. The team was one of the stronger teams from the Sand Village taking the exam, but they met the seeded team from the Uegakure village, which was the most sinister team among the seeded teams. The Sand Village team was seen slowly entering the minefield. In fact, several people stepped on Obsidian's bombs many times during the process, but because they had not entered the center of the minefield, Obsidian did not detonate the bomb. Soon after, they reached the top of the earth slope, which was where the most bombs were placed. Li Hua's guess was very reasonable. At this time, Heiyao looked at Tokinuma, meaning to detonate. Tokinuma nodded, and Heiyao licked the corner of his mouth, clasped his hands, and whispered, "Ha!" The ground beneath the Sand Village team suddenly exploded. The puppeteer and the other 2 genins reacted very quickly and jumped away immediately. And as the puppeteer jumped away, he wrapped the medical ninja with his puppet, trying to protect her. But Obsidian had placed too many bombs here, and several people were injured to varying degrees the moment they exploded. One of the genins was very lucky, as he happened to be lying on top of another bomb, and Obsidian detonated it immediately, killing the genin. At this time, the remaining 3 people were already injured and had lost a teammate. What's more, they had fallen into the opponent's home court, so they simply surrendered. If it was an encounter battle, they could still fight back, but now the opponent had the advantage of terrain and they had no chance of winning. After the team surrendered, they handed over the silver they had on them to Yan Quebec Yankei, who had extremely high defense, was very suitable for completing this kind of task. If the opponent counterattacked before dying, Yankei could minimize the damage to the opponent. After receiving it, Yan said, "We are really lucky, Tokinuma, it is the scroll of heaven, we have all the earth coiling scrolls." After they finished talking, they were about to leave. At this time, the medical ninja who had been silent all the time spoke up, her face full of tears, "Did you just kill people so casually?" Tokinuma stopped and said, "Little sister, I don't know how the Sand Village trained you. If you have this mentality, I advise you not to be a ninja, otherwise you will die on the battlefield sooner or later." Then Tokinuma led the team away. Although there were still some bombs here, the traces of battle were already very obvious. The team that came over would definitely be very careful and it would be impossible to achieve the same results as before, so Tokinuma and his men decided to change the location to place the bombs. At the same time, Tsunade and her companions encountered another team. "Tsunade, oh. It's Yojutsu Tetsu from the Hidden Cloud Village. Yayutai, Tsunade from Konoha Village. I heard that your grandfather is the god of Ninja World. Can you let us see the elegance of the granddaughter of the god of Ninja World?" Tsunade smiled coldly and said, "I promise to beat you so hard that your mother won't recognize you." At this moment, a leaf slowly fell, and the moment the leaf hit the ground, 8 people rushed out instantly. Chapter 59. After saying that, Tsunade faced Yatsuki Tetsu, Yukino and Shan were fighting back and forth. Reimaru and Riga were twins, and at the moment they were fighting fiercely with Jiraiya and Orochimaru. Tsunade's body was as fast as lightning, and she punched towards Yayutai with a whistling fist, carrying a powerful chakra wave. Yayutai suddenly flashed and drew the long sword in his hand, and a cold light slashed towards Tsunade. Tsunade did not retreat but advanced, lowering her body slightly to avoid the fierce attack, and then kicked out. Seeing that the situation was not good, Yayutai retreated violently, increasing the distance between himself and Tsunade. On the other side, Yukino and Shan were jumping and fighting on the giant tree. Yukino threw several shurikens in a row, but Shan quickly swung his weapon to knock the shurikens away, then turned into a lightning bolt and rushed towards Yukino. Yukino opened the Sharingan and easily saw Shan's path. But Shan's speed was too fast after all. Although Suino could see Shan's movements, her own reactions were a bit slow to keep up, and she was at a disadvantage for a while. Yukino intended to use Sharingan Genjutsu to control dodge to create a chance to kill with one blow, but dodge kept avoiding eye contact with Yukino, causing Yukino's Genjutsu to be unable to be triggered. Reimaru and Riga work in perfect harmony. Reimaru directly uses the lightning attribute chakra to stimulate his own acupoints. This method is similar to the primary form of lightning style chakra mode. With time, Reimaru may really be able to follow the second Reikage to cultivate the lightning style chakra mode. The strengthened Reiwo rushed directly towards Jiraiya and Orochimaru. He was fighting 1 against 2 at the same time and actually defeated Jiraiya and Orochimaru. In comparison, Jiraiya's physical skills are better, and with Jiraiya bearing the direct pressure, Orochimaru took the opportunity to look for an opportunity. But Leia now vividly demonstrated that the only way to defeat all martial arts in the world is to be faster, and that one person can break all martial arts with one force. Faced with Lei Wan, who was faster and stronger than them, the two were completely unable to find his flaws in a short period of time. On the other side, Riga took the opportunity to attack from the side, stabbing Orochimaru with the two daggers in his hands at the same time, one at Orochimaru's neck and the other at his heart, apparently intending to keep Orochimaru in the forest of death forever. Orochimaru licked the corner of his mouth and did a backflip, avoiding the attack as if he had no bones. At the same time, Orochimaru threw out several lion majesties towards Riga. The situation has become stalemate, but Class 7 is currently at a disadvantage. If they don't find an opportunity to break through, the situation will become worse. This is the time to call on our number 2 unexpected ninja, Jiraiya. Jiraiya revealed a flaw during the fierce battle with Reimaru. Raya smiled sinisterly and rushed over immediately, sweeping the dagger in his hand, determined to rip Jiraiya open. Orochimaru wanted to intercept, but his speed was not as fast as Riga, so he could only watch Riga rush towards Jiraiya. However, Orochimaru was not idle either. At this time, neither of the two enemies were paying attention to him. After leaving a shadow clone on the spot, Orochimaru himself disappeared from the battlefield. Jiraiya reacted quickly and jumped backwards. Although his posture was a bit awkward, he still managed to avoid it. But Riga had just dodged an attack by Orochimaru using the same method, and Jiraiya was already in the air at this time, so he would definitely not let this opportunity go to waste. Jiraiya's feet were now off the ground. Riga used the instant body snapping technique to appear in front of Jiraiya and kicked him hard in the abdomen. Could it be that the balance of victory has completely tilted? The moment the kick hit Jiraiya, both Reimaru and Riga laughed. This kick was enough to reduce Jiraiya's strength by 30%. However, Jiraiya, the second most unexpected ninja, arched his body like a shrimp when he was kicked by Riga, but he also spat out a mouthful of saliva, which landed steadily on Riga's glasses. As a ninja with 900-degree myopia, Leia is like a headless fly without his glasses. At this time, Leia said, "Mindless attack? What else can your saliva do besides disgusting me?" As he said that, Leia took off his glasses and started to wipe them, but he found that the saliva could not be wiped clean at all. The entire lens was foggy and no matter how Leia wiped the glasses, he could not see clearly. Leia said angrily, "A hole, what on earth did you vomit?" Jiraiya rolled over after landing, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said, "Toad oil, BD." At this moment, Leia was getting furious. Not only was the person in front of him disgusting, but his fighting style was so despicable. At this moment, there was a slight sound of footsteps behind Leia. Leia, who couldn't see clearly, focused all his attention on hearing and immediately looked back. He could vaguely see that the figure was the guy who used the snake. So Riga immediately formed seals and shouted, "Lightning style! Double short sword style," and sprinted towards Orochimaru, and his sprint speed was much faster than Rigameru. Riga's ninjutsu is very similar to Riguri, except that the damage is entirely dealt with the two daggers in his hands. During the sprint, he ignores the damage to his body and uses the lightning style chakra to stimulate the body. Although it can cause paralysis and loss of direction, the speed is basically impossible to avoid with the genin's strength. This ninjutsu is a one-for-one ninjutsu. If you cannot kill the opponent, you can only wait for the opponent to kill you. At this moment, the furious Riga immediately rushed towards Orochimaru. Orochimaru had no time to react before Riga pierced his heart. However, the stabbed Orochimaru turned into a ball of smoke, while Riga continued to rush forward with undiminished momentum. But who was in front of Lei? It was Leiwan, who had just thought he had won. Because the distance was far, Leiwan had some time to react. He tried his best to dodge, but was still cut on the chest. Just as Reiwan, who was stabbed, was about to curse, the disappeared Orochimaru unexpectedly appeared on the battlefield. He stood silently behind Reiwan, and a lion majesty emerged from his sleeve and bit Reiwan's neck directly. In an instant, Leiwan fell to the ground. On the other side, Lei, who had just finished sprinting, was paralyzed all over and also lay on the ground. In order to prevent Riga from suddenly attacking and hurting others after the paralysis ends, Orochimaru made Riga unconscious in the same way. What's quite funny is that Lion Majesty was also paralyzed when he first bit Thunder Fang, and it was Orochimaru who held Lion Majesty's head down before injecting the venom into him. After finishing the battle, Orochimaru quickly ran to Jiraiya and supported him. At this time, Jiraiya had difficulty standing. Jiraiya opened his ninja tool bag, took out some healing medicines, and gave himself a simple treatment. After he had basically no problem moving freely, the two of them carried Riga and Reimaru respectively and went to the battlefield where Tsunade and the others were. When Jiraiya and Orochimaru arrived, the battle on Tsunade's side was still fierce. Tsunade was overjoyed when she saw the two of them capture Reimaru and Riga. Yayudi and Shan's faces changed when they saw this. Jiraiya said loudly, "Your companions have lost their fighting ability. It is meaningless to resist further." Yayuatai said coldly, "Did you kill them both?" This question was very important. If Leiwan and Leia died, the possibility of his team passing the trial would be very slim. It would be difficult for Shan and himself to reach the central tower. So he decided to just go for broke and fight to the death with Tsunade and the others. Even though he had no chance of winning, he might be able to drag Tsunade's team down with his desperate fighting style. But if the two had not died, his team would still have a chance to pass the exam, so it would not be impossible to redeem the two after negotiating with Tsunade's team. Chapter 60. Orochimaru shook his head, indicating that the two were not dead, but just unconscious. After learning this, Yayuatai said, "We only have the Scroll of Earth and the Scroll of Fire. I can give you the two scrolls and our team's banknotes. How about you hand over those two idiots to me and then we can say goodbye?" Tsunade wanted to continue attacking, and just as she was about to rush forward with her legs spread, Yukino stopped her and whispered in Tsunade's ear, that Yatsuki Tetsu has a large-range ninjutsu. If we use it, it might deplete our combat power. Besides, dodge is not easy to deal with, and it is very restraining to my Sharingan. Shueno continued, "In order to ensure the combat effectiveness of our team, let them leave. The exam has just begun. If we lose too much combat power at this time, we may not be able to hold on until the central tower." In fact, Tsunade and her companions could also use summoning techniques to fight, but summoning techniques were the four of them's trump cards, so it was best not to use it unless absolutely necessary. The original plan that the four people discussed was to use psychic skills in the third stage. A few of them got a rumor that the third stage exam would be a 1v1 competition. At that time, psychic skills might be able to turn the tide and turn defeat into victory. In the end, Tsunade and the others agreed to Yayutai's plan, and handed the half-dead Reiwan and Riga to Yayutai. They stepped forward and touched the breath of the two men. After learning that they could still breathe normally, they handed 2 scrolls and 4 silver bills to Tsunade. Yayutai carried Leiwan, while Shan carried Riga on his back, and they slowly retreated towards Tsunade and the others. The two of them moved deeper into the forest while watching Tsunade and the others warily. Only when they were out of sight of Tsunade and the others did Shan couldn't help but complain, "Captain, why did you give them all the scrolls and banknotes? Then we will have nothing." Yayutai smiled bitterly, "What can we do if we don't give them the chance? If we really fight, we will definitely lose the chance to pass the test. Now at least we have saved Leiwan and Lei. After they wake up, we may still be able to pass the test." On the other side, Tsunade held the scroll and banknotes and snorted, "It's a bargain for them." Yukino said calmly, "Next we have to speed up and head to the central tower. The other teams should have gained a lot, and it's fortunate that their team has the earth coiling. Now we have all the earth coiling axes. As long as we find the merchant and buy the other 4 scrolls, we can pass the level." So, Tsunade and her group quickened their pace and headed towards the central tower. Several people argued on the way. Orochimaru said that it would be better to look for the 5 attribute scrolls everywhere. If they didn't meet the envy merchant in the end, all their efforts would be in vain. But Yukino insisted on going directly to the central tower. With the strength of several people, 2 hours was enough to reach the central tower. Even if there were any accidents on the way, it would not delay too long. Besides, Yukino speculated that according to the examiner's rules, there would most likely be a merchant at the end. Even if she didn't win the bet, she could still get some scrolls by encountering some enemies on the way. If all else fails, just block the gate of the central tower and snatch other people's scrolls. Yukino's words touched Orochimaru, and they headed directly to the central tower. The few of them encountered some traps or battles along the way, but with the help of Yukino's Sharingan, they were able to foresee the danger in advance, and they all cleverly avoided the traps. If they encountered a team of average strength, they would also take them down, so they gained a lot along the way. Probably because it was the beginning of the exam, the team they met didn't have any 5 attribute scrolls, so they only managed to grab 28 silver tickets and 7 earth coiling scrolls. Moreover, they met Uchiha Jinhuo's team, and the two teams peacefully exchanged their own silver notes. After all, their own team's silver notes could not be used. The Mirror Fire team planned to hunt in the surrounding areas and then head to the destination when the time was right. So after the exchange, the two teams separated, and at this time the team had 32 silver notes. But as Tsunade's team was about to reach the central tower, they did not encounter any envy merchants along the way. Just when they were preparing to go back home, an envy merchant stood quietly at the entrance of the tower, like a statue. Several people rushed over quickly, and soon Tsunade and her companions arrived in front of the merchant. Tsunade said, "Hello, we want to buy scrolls with the 4 attributes of water, wind, thunder, and earth." Merchant Enbu nodded and said, "Okay, 4 silver notes." Jiraiya quickly took out a handful of silver bills, pulled out 4 from them and handed them to the Enbu merchant. The Enbu merchant checked them carefully and after confirming that they were the silver bills from his team, he handed the 4 tribute scroll to Jiraiya. So the few of them bought the 4 tribute scrolls, and the conditions for passing the level were met. Just as they were about to enter the tower, Jiraiya muttered, "The remaining banknotes and scrolls were really stolen in vain." Tsunade comforted him, "It's okay, after all, it's better to be prepared." At this moment, Jiraiya suddenly remembered that the examiner said that Enbu merchants could have some special interactions, so he said and walked to the front of the Enbu merchant again. Tsunade and the others were surprised by Jiraiya's behavior, but based on the principle of not abandoning or giving up, they followed Jiraiya back to the Enbu merchant. The Enbu merchant looked at the boy who had just left and came back, and couldn't help but be a little curious about what he was going to do. Jiraiya took out the remaining 28 silver notes and said, "Hello, can I give you these 28 silver notes and you won't sell any scrolls anymore?" Tsunade and the other two were completely speechless after hearing this. They didn't know how a human could come up with such a mean idea. But what he didn't expect was that the Enbu merchant shook his head and said, "The rules don't allow Enbu merchants not to sell scrolls." Originally Tsunade and the others wanted to give up because delaying would lead to unexpected events. When they were about to urge Jiraiya to enter the tower, Jiraiya scratched his hair and said, "Can the price of each scroll be increased to 28 silver notes?" As he spoke, Jiraiya slapped the silver notes in front of the Enbu merchant. Tsunade and the others were desperate and were ready to carry Jiraiya away, but they didn't expect the Enbu merchant to say, "Not enough." That meant it was possible, so they let Jiraiya do what he wanted to do, wanting to see what the final result would be. Jiraiya slapped the remaining 7 earth coiling scrolls in front of the Enbu merchant and said, "Can we increase the price of each scroll to 28 silver notes?" The Enbu merchant shook his head again and said, "Not enough." Finally, Jiraiya placed the 28 silver bills and 7 earth coiling shafts in front of the Enbu merchant and said, "Can you raise the price by adding this and this?" After saying that, Jiraiya rolled up his sleeves. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the Enbu merchant actually said, "Okay." The rule of Enbu merchants is that as long as you hand over a set of earth coiling axes to an Enbu merchant, you will have the pricing power of the merchant's scrolls. You can set the price as high as you have silver notes, and the price can double for each additional set of earth coiling axes. But because Jiraiya didn't ask, the merchant didn't tell him. Jiraiya gave 3 sets of earth coiling axes, plus a single scroll of heaven, so Jiraiya could actually set the price at 84,000 taels. At this time, Tsunade, Yukino and Orochimaru couldn't help but laugh. They could imagine how shocked the other teams would be if they arrived at the tower and saw the Enbu merchant preparing to buy scrolls, and asked how much it cost, and it turned out to be 28,000 taels. Thinking of this, several people praised Jiraiya for doing a good job. Jiraiya felt embarrassed by the praise and kept scratching his head. Then several people entered the tower. Not long after, Mizunosuke Shimo from the Hidden Mist Village led the team to the central tower. Terumi Maihi had better eyesight and said, "Hey, there's an Anbu merchant up ahead, so we don't have to worry about the remaining 3 scrolls." Terumi Maihi ran to the Anbu merchant, took out 3 silver bills and said, "I want to buy 3 scrolls." Chapter 61. I can't buy it. The Anbu merchant's straightforward words were like a heavy hammer that stunned Terumi Maihi. Terumi Maihi counted the silver bills in his hand unconfidently, and was extremely sure that there were indeed 3 silver bills, so Terumi Maihi said again, "I will use 3 silver bills to buy 3 scrolls." The Anbu merchant said coldly, "I told you, you can't buy it." Terumi Maihi was very puzzled and asked with a puzzled look, "Don't the exam rules say that each scroll is sold for 1 silver note? Why can't I buy it now? If you had come to me a few minutes earlier, you could have bought the scroll for 1 silver note, but now you have to use 28 silver notes to buy 1 scroll." Terumi Maihi scratched his ear in disbelief and asked, "How much?" 28 silver notes. After hearing it clearly, Terumi Maihi jumped up from where he was and said angrily, "Why don't you go and rob?" Although Terumi Maihi was very angry now, he still didn't dare to do anything to the Anbu merchant. Are you kidding? Most of the Anbu are at the level of JA. Nin. I am just a genin now. It is like hitting a rock with an egg if I attack them. His teammates also noticed that Terumi Maihi was emotionally unstable and quickly came over to pull him back. Terumi Maihi waved his hand to show that he would not act impulsively. After adjusting his mood, he spoke again, "Can I ask what happened in the past few dozen minutes to increase the price of each scroll so much?" "No problem. Just now, a white-haired kid used the hidden rules to raise the price of each scroll to 28,000 taels." After hearing this, Terumi Maihi said angrily, "Oh no, the team ahead raised the price of each scroll to 28,000 taels, which is 28 silver notes. We are too late." The Anbu merchant revealed Jiraiya's information without any guilt. After all, Anbu merchants are not only those from Konoha. Some Anbu from other villages also come to protect the shadow of their own village. Among them, a small number of Anbu from other villages also come to serve as Anbu merchants. Unfortunately, the Anbu merchant in front of him was an Anbu from another village, so it was understandable that he revealed Jiraiya's information. Anyway, the rules did not prohibit such behavior. When the Anbu merchant saw the hidden rules, he was shocked. He had no idea how the examiner came up with such a hidden rule. But he didn't take it seriously at the time. After all, he thought no candidate could think of this condition. But he found out that he was wrong, very wrong. I have no idea what's wrong with the brain of that candidate with a head full of white hair. He can even come up with such outrageous conditions. To implement hidden rules, the following points must be achieved. First, one must have the intention of harming others without benefiting oneself. If you must say it, raising the price will still be of certain benefit to Jiraiya and others. After all, it can reduce the number of people who pass the second exam to a certain extent, but it is a real loss. Second, you need to collect extra earth coiling axes. Generally, only strong teams can collect extra earth coiling axes. In this case, once you get to the tower, you will definitely go straight in. Who would want to make a surprise attack? Third, you need to have extra silver notes. Many teams stop after grabbing 4 silver notes. They have no other use for them anyway, so under normal circumstances they won't collect too many. To sum up, the Anbu merchant never thought that the price of his scroll would be raised, and the white-haired kid himself had some impression that he went to watch the first exam when he was on duty, and it seemed that he was the first to report it. For such an interesting kid, Anbu merchant decided to take care of him. From now on, when each team comes to him to buy scrolls, he will help promote the white-haired kid for free. Mizunosuke Shuang persuaded Terumi Maihideo, "Forget it, since it doesn't work here, let's go to other places to collect scrolls. There is still a long time before the end of the exam, enough time for us to pass the exam." Soon, Mizuno Frost's team left this place and went to other places to look for scrolls. After that, many teams came one after another. Every team was very surprised when they saw the Anbu merchant, but they were also very upset after communicating. There is strength in numbers. Soon a team pointed out that the white-haired boy was most likely Jiraiya from Konoha. Some teams immediately left to look for other Anbu merchants or search for scattered scrolls in the Death Forest, while others simply set up positions at the entrance of the central tower to snatch other people's scrolls. But no matter what choice the team made, the only thing they all agreed on was that they were all scolding Jiraiya. Poor Jiraiya was still unaware of this at the time, still imagining the miserable looks of others on the high tower, not realizing that his identity had been exposed. Soon, some teams gathered all the scrolls and entered the central tower. Jiraiya leaned over the railing and saw that other teams had also successfully passed the level. He muttered, "Hey, they were pretty fast." As soon as the team entered the central tower, they saw a figure lying on the railing. Who else could that striking white hair be but Jiraiya? Seeing Jiraiya looking at them in a mean manner, several people glared at him. After glaring at Jiraiya, they found the examiner and submitted their scrolls. It would be unjustifiable to attack Jiraiya now, so it would be better to beat him up after the exam and then beat him up again during the third exam, otherwise it would be difficult to get rid of the hatred in my heart. Jiraiya, who was lying on the railing, asked his teammates in confusion, "Did those guys glare at me just now?" Orochimaru didn't pay any attention to it at all, and responded casually, "How is it possible? It must be your illusion. Maybe you are overthinking it." Jiraiya nodded, thinking that Orochimaru was right, and continued to lie on the railing and watch the miserable looks of others. The more he watched, the happier he became. As the teams continued to come in, each team would glare at Jiraiya before submitting their scrolls. If it happens once or twice it may be a coincidence, but if it happens so many times in a row it definitely cannot be explained by coincidence. Jiraiya jumped back and said, "Oh no. They probably all know that I was the one who proposed the price of the scroll for the merchant at the door." Even if Jiraiya was stupid, he knew that he was doomed at this moment, and quickly hid backwards, fearing that the people downstairs would see him. Unfortunately, Jiraiya's shameless look just now has been remembered by others. In addition, Jiraiya also betrayed Uchiha Kagamikaze's team, so when Kurama Genin from the team came in and saw Jiraiya lying on the railing, he was immediately furious and drew a picture of Jiraiya looking like he was asking for a beating, and the drawing was very lifelike. Afterwards, Kuramaji Nyun looked at his own painting with satisfaction, and after obtaining Jinghuo's consent, he hung Jiraiya requesting a fight at the entrance of the central tower. Afterwards, the candidates at the door worked hard to collect scrolls, just for the chance to beat Jiraiya with their own hands after passing the level. The most desperate one among them is Riga. If people outside the field were to rank Jiraiya's hated people, Riga would definitely be at the top of the list. After all, during the battle with Jiraiya, Riga was almost nauseated to vomit by that mouthful of toad oil. Soon it was the next morning, and all the candidates who passed the exam stood on the first floor of the central tower. At this time, the examiner began to announce the list of candidates who passed the exam, as well as the time and place of the third exam. Because the positions were arranged in the order of passing the exam, Tsunade's team stood in the first row. At this moment, none of the candidates were looking at the examiner who was announcing the results. Instead, everyone's eyes were fixed on Jiraiya. Jiraiya's perception was still good. He could feel countless eyes staring at him. He cried and whispered to his team members, "You have to help me later." The result was that Tsunade and the others quickly stood a little further away from him. Soon the examiner finished announcing all the matters, and Jiraiya immediately prepared to run away. When he turned around, he found that Tsunade and the others had disappeared. When Jiraiya was about to run away, Riga appeared beside Jiraiya with a flash of lightning, put his arm around Jiraiya's shoulder and said, "Where do you want to go?" Jiraiya smiled stiffly at the people surrounding him and said, "Good morning, everyone." Seeing everyone ready to fight, Zilai knew that it would not end well, so he simply squatted down with his head in his hands and said, "Don't hit my face. Beat him." Chapter 62. The first ray of sunlight in the morning gently fell on the bed. After simply tying up her long black hair, Yuejian got dressed and went out. He came to the steamed bun shop he often went to, but found that there was a long queue today. When Konoha was first established, Yuejian made dumplings for Madara and others. The dough was so thin that it was translucent, but it could hold such a large ball of meat filling. The moment you bite into it, the aroma of hot meat mixed with soup explodes in your mouth. Soon the steamed buns won over the taste buds of several people. Guang pestered Yuejian to teach him how to make steamed buns. Yuejian also taught him everything she knew, and thus the food of steamed buns gradually spread throughout the streets and alleys of Konoha. The steamed bun shop that Yuejian came to today was opened by a young man named Xiao Chao. Xiao Chao was in his 20s and was a professional chef. After arriving in Konoha Village, he settled here. Xiao Xiao not only makes good steamed buns, but also makes excellent ramen. Yuejian is very curious whether Xiao Xiao means father of handmaid. After all, the names are somewhat similar. Yuejian has never eaten Ichiraku ramen after traveling through time for so long, which is more or less a pity. At this time, Yuejian had already started queuing up. She was a little absent-minded thinking about Ichiraku ramen. When she came to her senses, she found that the child in front of the line was Jiraiya. Yuejian said, "Hey, Jiraiya, are you here to eat buns too?" Jiraiya turned his head, his face bruised and swollen, and two panda eyes, and said incoherently, "It seems to be a tooth." "Oh, Gang Hao is passing by, come and have a taste." "Jiraiya, what's wrong with your face?" "Daodu, thank you. I was very active yesterday." Jiraiya was about to cry as he spoke. Yuejian decided not to tease him anymore. Soon after, she bought some buns, said goodbye to Jiraiya, and left. In fact, Yuejian knew everything that happened yesterday. The most important thing was that Yuejian came up with a hidden rule. After thinking of it, Yuejian thought it was very interesting, so she told Tobirama to add it to the exam rules. Tsukimi had never thought that anyone could trigger this hidden rule. If Jiraiya hadn't been her student, her ideas would have been different from others, and she would have actually raised the price of the scroll. Seeing Jiraiya being beaten like this, Yumi felt it was quite interesting. After all, this minor injury was no big deal to Jiraiya, and it could also help him practice his ability to withstand beatings. The candidates were very careful when they attacked Jiraiya. Minor injuries were no problem, but they certainly couldn't injure Jiraiya too badly after the exam. After all, this was Konoha Village. But if during the third exam, even if Jiraiya was killed, no one would be able to point out the problem, and his death would be entirely due to his own lack of ability. After the second exam, all candidates will have 3 days of long rest, because the second exam lasted a whole day and night, which was quite a waste of the candidate's energy. Therefore, 3 days of rest are enough to restore energy for the exam and treat my injuries, ensuring that I am in full condition to face the third exam. The third exam will be held at the Konoha 10,000 people arena, but this time the construction began when Madara was in charge of Konoha. In order to build a large village in Konoha, Madara and Hashirama personally went to find a suitable hilltop, and Madara used Susanoo to cut it into the appropriate size. Finally, the two of them worked together to move it to Konoha, and it was carved by many ninjas who were good at earth style. After the carving was completed, Hashirama reinforced the entire arena with wood style. Every seat was a wooden stake created by Hashirama with wood style, and the entire arena looked natural. The strength of a village can be seen from an arena. It took Konoha only half a month to build this arena, and the most time-consuming part was selecting the hilltop. Other villages would probably find it difficult to build an arena of the same level even if they mobilized the entire village. In the afternoon, Tsukimi decided to give some guidance to Tsunade and the others. Tsukimi then remembered that when Naruto and the others took part in the Chunin exam, Kakashi only took Sasuke for special training and taught Sasuke a move called Raikuri, but did not teach Naruto and Sakura anything. Tsukimi can still remember the argument in the dormitory before the time travel, about whether Kakashi was a competent teacher and why he was biased. In fact, in Yuejian's opinion, Kakashi is really competent. He really teaches class 7 and teaches students according to their aptitude. The reason why only Sasuke was tutoring for the Chunin exam was because Jiraiya was going to tutor Naruto. As one of the Sunin, Jiraiya was definitely stronger than himself, and was more suitable to teach Naruto, so Jiraiya felt at ease leaving Naruto in the hands of Jiraiya. As for Sakura, she was originally positioned as a Genjutsu-type ninja. During the first exam, Sakura was the first to notice Genjutsu, as Kakashi was not very good at Genjutsu. In addition, Sakura had always been very weak before Sasuke defected. When practicing tree climbing in the Land of Waves, Sakura mastered it in one day, and after that she just yawned and rested every day. On the other hand, after Naruto and Sasuke practiced hard for 7 days, they climbed the tree much higher than Sakura. Sakura was more or less surprised when she saw how high the two of them climbed the tree. At that time, Sakura was not very proactive in her training, and she had already been eliminated in the preliminaries, so Kakashi could only focus on Naruto and Sasuke who made it to the quarterfinals. Naruto has been taken away by Jiraiya, so Kakashi can only teach Sasuke. As she was thinking about it, Yuejin released the ninja hawk, which was raised by Yuejin herself. Unlike traditional goshawks, Yumi raises owls, and it is a white and black Madara spotted owl that she had been searching for a long time. Moreover, Yuejin named it Hedwig. She didn't expect that the wizard dream that had not been realized in her previous life would actually come true in the Hokage world. Tsukimi wrote 4 notes and asked Tsunade and others to gather at Konoha training ground number 7 at around 3 p.m. She put the notes in the bamboo tube tied to Hedwig's feet and let Hedwig go. When Yujian arrived in the afternoon, the 4 of them had already started practicing on their own. Yujian was very satisfied with this, as long as they were motivated. Tsukimi asked Tsunade to treat Jiraiya's pig head. Tsunade had already learned some medical ninjutsu, so she was adept at treating these minor injuries. Tsukimi didn't know why, but Jiraiya seemed to have no feelings for Tsunade for such a long time. It might be that the storm stirred up by her butterfly was too big, and she didn't know when the relationship between Tsunade and Jiraiya was distorted. But how to say it, just when Tsunade put her hands on Jiraiya's face and scolded him not to move, Jiraiya actually blushed, which was rare. Although Jiraiya's face and nose were bruised now, the redness on his cheeks could not be concealed by the bruises. Jiraiya just lowered his head obediently without saying a word. Under normal circumstances, Jiraiya would definitely say a few dirty words at this time. Tsunade quickly healed Jiraiya, so Yuejin asked the others to warm up and prepare to start the next round of training. Yuejin plans to test the overall strength of several people, and if possible, teach them some appropriate ninjutsu to improve their strength. During the warm-up, Jiraiya withdrew for some reason and came to Tsukimi. Tsukimi was a little curious about why Jiraiya came here. Just as Tsukimi was about to speak, Jiraiya spoke first. Teacher, I don't think I want to be Hokage anymore. Oh, why? Because Tsunade wants to unify the 5 nations, then she must be the Hokage. Jiraiya looked at Tsunade, whose forehead was covered with sweat, in the training ground, and was slightly absent-minded. He continued, in this case, she must need a strong man to support her and suppress all the voices. Then I will be the strongest man in the ninja world. Jiraiya scratched his head in embarrassment. At this time, Tsunade yelled, Jiraiya, why are you slacking off? Come here and warm up. Jiraiya quickly stood up and said to Yuejin, Teacher, I will go over first. After saying that, Jiraiya trotted towards the training ground, shouting as he ran, Here I come. Yujian stared blankly at the 4 people laughing and playing, and murmured, Jiraiya, your dream is very good. Chapter 63. Seeing that everyone was almost done warming up, Yuejin began to perform the ninjutsu he least wanted to use, the multiple shadow clone technique. After a series of bang 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 sounds, 4 puffs of smoke appeared behind Yujian. After the smoke cleared, the 4 shadow clones performed transformation techniques at some point, transforming into the reincarnation appearances of the 1st generation to the 4th generation. The 2nd generation crossed his arms and said coldly to Yuejin, You born evil Yuejin, what do you want to do by summoning the 4 of us? Yujian resisted the urge to disperse the clones and said through gritted teeth, Change back. Evil World Hashirama scratched his head and said, Well, original form, don't be so angry. Although he said that, the few of them still returned to their original appearance. Did the teacher's shadow clone just now turn into Tsunade's grandfather and 2nd grandfather? Then who are the other 2 people? Jiraiya asked. Tsunade continued, It is indeed the grandfather and the 2nd grandfather. The 3rd person looks a bit like Hiruzen J.A. Nin. I don't recognize the 4th one at all. Jiraiya added, Then why are there so many cracks on their faces? And what does it mean to be born evil? That sounds quite interesting. Tsunade quickly told Jiraiya to shut up. She heard from the elders that innate evil was a term that her 2nd grandfather used to describe the Uchiha clan. Although I haven't talked about it for many years, it's so awkward to talk about this topic now that Yukino is by my side. Tsukimi asked one of the shadow clone to prepare lunch while she guided Yukino, and the other clones went to guide Tsunade and the others. The chef clone was indignant and said that he also wanted to teach, but Yuejin still rejected his proposal. The chef's clone left, saying as he walked away, He is so naughty, isn't he? Then don't blame me for making chicken soup. Yujian ignored her clone's mumblings and started today's teaching. Tsukimi plans to let Jiraiya and Orochimaru learn Raise Nan. 3 days is indeed too short, so Tsukimi plans to let them separate shadow clone to learn. You don't have to worry about headaches or dying of exhaustion. Even if you die accidentally, you can just resurrect and continue practicing. Tsukimi originally wanted Tsunade to learn the 8 gates escape technique. The 8 gates increases super strength, which is exciting just to think about. However, it would be difficult for Tsunade to master it in a short time, so Yuejin planned to teach her some physical skills, such as Lion Bang and Konoha Whirlwind. As for Yukino, Tsukimi plans to teach her Chidori, Kakashi's famous ninjutsu, which is extremely suitable for Sharingan owners. There is no need to worry whether Yukino can learn it. Tsukimi can demonstrate it a few more times so that Yukino can copy it. The next step is to apply what you have learned, but Orochimaru and Jiraiya only need to learn it in a short period of time and do not need to apply it flexibly. Soon the training of several people began. Yuejin brought Yukino to a huge rock and formed hand seals very slowly. Yukino opened the Sharingan and watched attentively. Tsukimi performed the 3 seals in slow motion for 5 seconds. After completing the seals, electricity surged in Tsukimi's right hand, making a sound like the Chidori chorus. Tsukimi shouted in a low voice, Chidori, then rushed towards the boulder, and his right hand actually pierced directly into the boulder. In an instant, cracks appeared all over the surface of the boulder, and then it shattered with a loud bang. Yukino's eyes were full of amazement and excitement. It's not like she had never seen powerful ninjutsu before, but Chidori was the first powerful ninjutsu that she had seen someone capable of learning. Chidori is extremely suitable for Yukino at this moment. Yukino's current chakra amount, physical fitness, and dynamic vision have just reached the level to release Chidori. When you have become proficient in Chidori, and your physical fitness has improved in the future, you can learn Chidori's advanced ninjutsu Reikuri. Chidori is an A-level ninjutsu, and Reikuri is an S-level ninjutsu. Although there is only one level difference between the two, the difficulty is completely different. She began to form seals like Uegian, but her first attempt unexpectedly failed. The current only flashed faintly and then disappeared. Uegian encouraged her not to be discouraged and demonstrated it again slowly. Yukino took a deep breath, concentrated her mind, and successfully formed a seal for the second time. Her right hand also had a more stable electric current. However, it was still a little far from the real Chidori, but it was also a rapid improvement. In the evening, Chef Tsukimi came to deliver chicken soup, and he also brought 9 tails. Watching the training of several people, the amount of chakra has always been a big problem, so Chef Tsukimi asked 9 tails to put on the tailed beast robes for several people. Jiraiya and Orochimaru's shadow clones are also working hard to practice the Raise Nan. Since they don't have to worry about sudden death, Tsukimi simply teaches them the multiple shadow clone technique. It is not difficult to learn shadow clone and then master multiple shadow clone. The hands of the 2 clones are seen constantly condensing chakra balls of varying sizes. Although there are many problems, there has been some progress. Tsunade learned physical skills from Tsukimi. She was already incredibly strong, so Tsukimi gave Tsunade the weights. It was not until Tsunade had difficulty moving that Tsunade began to let her practice. With the tailed beast coat, the minor injuries she suffered during the practice were quickly healed. The muscles were constantly torn and healed, making Tsunade's physical fitness even more amazing. After 3 days of training, Yukino could already release Chidori 4 times in a short period of time. The only thing that limited Yukino was the amount of chakra. With the strongest medical ninja in the ninja world, Tsukimi, and the most powerful power bank, 9 tails, by her side, Yukino has no idea how many times she has released Chidori in the past few days. Now, even if she releases Chidori, her right hand won't get hurt at all. Tsunade is now wearing the weight just as if she was not wearing it at all. Her physical fitness has improved dramatically and she is now fully capable of learning the 8 gates ninjutsu. Orochimaru and Jiraiya are even more complicated. Their heads almost exploded every time they removed the shadow clone in the past few days. They have even experienced resurrection several times. In just 3 days, their mental state even showed some problems. Soon the 3rd Chunin exam began. First, Tobirama announced the rules of the competition. It was a simple one-on-one. If 2 seeded players met, one of them had to be eliminated. It was very cruel. At this time, many ninjas and civilians came to watch the battle, and Konoha made a lot of money just from the ticket money. The story of Jiraiya's 2 Chunin exams has spread throughout Konoha, and many people come to visit just to see who Jiraiya is. The first game is between Jiraiya and Shota Takahashi from the Hidden Cloud Village. As a seeded player, Jiraiya will definitely have no problem defeating Shota Takahashi. But unexpectedly, the candidates who were tricked by Jiraiya and failed the first and second stage exams were shouting that they were shameless. Uegian was also amused when he heard it, and whispered, "It's better not to shake the billion." Unexpectedly, someone heard these words, and soon, scattered voices of Buletin Yao Bai Lian Zi Laya could be heard in the venue. In the end, someone yelled Jiraiya and the whole audience started shouting Buletin Yao Bai Lian. The scene was like FKU, give me your money back. Soon Jiraiya won the battle, but the shouting in the arena did not stop, and the sound could still be heard even after Jiraiya left the arena. After a few more battles, it was Tsunade's turn to fight Tokinuma, and Jiraiya shouted, "Come on, Tsunade." Tsunade waved her hand, gave the few people a quick back gesture, turned over and jumped into the arena. Chapter 64. As soon as the referee's voice of starting sounded, Tsunade moved. She took a step and rushed towards Tokinuma. The ground cracked under her foot. Tokinuma reacted quickly as well. He took out a smoke bomb and threw it at his feet. Suddenly, a thick cloud of smoke obscured Tokinuma's figure. You can carry some ninja tools during the exam. Except for detonating tags, most of the ninja tools can be carried, and smoke bombs are one of them. The wind pressure caused by Tsunade's landing instantly blew away the smoke, but Tokinuma was no longer there. Tsunade, who had read the information about Tokinuma, guessed that he might have turned his body into mud and dived underground. Tsunade could use her supernatural power to break the ground, but it would consume too much chakra, and she didn't know the exact location of Tokinuma. Of course, Tokinuma cannot always hide under the ground, otherwise Tsunade will naturally win after the chakra is completely consumed. After thinking it through, Tsunade simply stood where she was and closed her eyes. Since she couldn't see the location of Tokinuma anyway, she might as well rely on her perception to try to find Tokinuma. Time passed by minute, and the audience became a little impatient and began to whisper. Tsunade couldn't hold back her emotions anymore and became a little anxious. Suddenly, Tsunade found that the ground she was standing on felt a little strange, as if it had become slightly softer. When Tsunade realized that something was wrong, the ground beneath her feet turned into mud, and Tsunade found that she could not stand on the mud even if she attached chakra to the soles of her feet. Slowly Tsunade began to sink into the mud. At this critical situation, Tokinuma suddenly emerged from the mud and rushed towards Tsunade with a kunao in hand. Tsunade looked at the person coming and punched him directly. The huge force actually broke Tokinuma apart. Unexpectedly, the broken Tokinuma turned into mud and wrapped up Tsunade. As a result, Tsunade's movements became more restricted, and Tokinuma could only watch Tsunade from the bottom of the mud. Unexpectedly, the mud did not block Tokinuma's view. Tokinuma frowned slightly. He found that there was something wrong with the speed at which Tsunade sank into the mud. It seemed a little too fast. But he didn't think too much about it. Tsunade frowned at this time. She knew that if she continued like this, she would inevitably be in a desperate situation. So she gathered a huge amount of chakra into her fist and punched it down with incredible force. This force instantly shook away the mud near her, and Tsunade took the opportunity to jump to the ground. Tokinuma was startled, but quickly controlled the swamp to flow towards Tsunade. But it took a long time for the ground of Tokinuma to turn into a swamp. The ground was slowly transformed into a quagmire. The chakra fluctuations were so slight that Tsunade didn't notice it. Now Tokinuma was at a loss for a moment, and the large-scale mud operation directly exposed the location of Tokinuma. Tsunade untied all the weight on her body and appeared right above Tokinuma in a flash. She concentrated all her chakra on the soles of her feet and kicked down with a painful kick. Tsunade took off the weight so quickly that Tokinuma had no time to dodge. At that moment, Tokinuma was like being hit by a steamroller falling from the sky. He fell unconscious on the ground, covered in blood. The referee then ruled Tsunade the winner and quickly arranged for medical ninjas and Earth-style ninjas to rescue Tokinuma. After Tsunade recovered her chakra for a while, she slowly walked towards the team and congratulated Yumi and her teammates. In fact, if Tokinuma hadn't been unlucky enough to meet Tsunade, he would have had a good chance of making it to the end. After a few more games, it was Yukino's turn to face Shan. As an old rival from the second exam, Shan's strength was still fresh in Yukino's memory, especially Shan's speed, which was really shocking. But now Yukino has learned Chidori, and Chidori's sprint speed is fast enough to suppress dodge, but Yukino only has 4 chances, and it would be dangerous if she fails to win in 4 chances. Soon, Yukino and Shan came into conflict. Shan was still the same as before, not allowing himself to look into Yukino's eyes to prevent himself from being hit by the Sharingan's Genjutsu. Yukino tried to take down Shan with the motion capture of Sharingan, and the two fought back and forth. Yukino used Chidori twice, but both times she brushed past Shan's body. Even when Shan used Lightning Flash, Yukino was able to see through it, and the charged clone on the spot would not fool Yukino at all. Shan was also frightened by Chidori's sprinting speed. The long period of high-speed movement made Shan a little exhausted. Flash is like a cheetah on the African grasslands. It has a very powerful instantaneous burst of power, but it cannot fight a protracted battle. After a long time, Flash may be defeated. So Shan decided to take down Yukino the next time she used Chidori. Soon, Yukino discovered another flaw in Shan and released Chidori very quickly, rushing forward like an arrow. But this flaw was deliberately left by Shan. Shan burst out with all his speed and barely dodged Chidori, then grabbed the kunai and swung it at Yukino's neck. Eyes in his palms were sweating as he watched on the field. He was afraid that Yukino would get hurt by accident. Yukino also reacted very quickly. She drew out her kunai the moment Chidori disappeared and blocked Shan's attack. At this moment, their eyes met. Shan reacted and closed his eyes quickly. Sharingan's Genjutsu also requires a certain amount of time to perform, and chakra must be transported to the eyes to perform, so as long as Shan closes his eyes in time, he can still avoid the Genjutsu. But the kunai in Yukino's hand is special. It is a special kunai bought from White Cat, with excellent chakra conduction performance. Yukino immediately conducted the lightning attribute chakra to the kunai. Long-term practice of Chidori made Yukino fully capable of doing this. Iron is conductive. Shan was shocked before he could even close his eyes. It wouldn't matter if there was no electric shock, the electric shock made Shan stiff for a moment, which was enough time for Yukino to perform Genjutsu. Then Yukino used the Sharingan to release a Genjutsu, muttering, "Immerse yourself in the Sharingan's Genjutsu." Soon, Shan stood still like a wooden man, and Yukino quietly put the kunai on Shan's neck, and the referee announced that Yukino won. Orochimaru came on the field next. The strength of the ninja he met was also very average. Orochimaru quickly won the victory. At this time, Orochimaru's fighting style had a bit of the style of later generations. Various snake ninjutsu were used vividly. The other more interesting match was the battle between Terumi Maihi and Iwakatsu. When Tsukimi saw the name Terumi Maihi, she was very curious whether he had any relationship with Terumi Mei. After all, the names were too similar. When he heard the referee announce the duel between the two, the man with the mustache laughed unscrupulously. He even began to doubt whether God was blessing him. Yan Q's defense is definitely the best among so many candidates. Because most of his time is spent on improving his defense, Yan Q's speed is really average. Who is Terumi Mega? He is the owner of lava-style Kekii Genkai. Isn't he born to restrain Iwasaki? As expected, Iwake's defense was soon dissolved by Terumi Maihi's lava style. Iwake had no choice but to surrender, declaring Terumi Maihi's victory. Seeing his seated player beat the seated player from the bandaged man's family, the guy with a mustache couldn't suppress the smile on his face. After a long time, it was Jiraiya's turn to play, and his opponent was none other than Riga, who had been spit with toad oil by him. Chapter 65. Jiraiya, just wait for your death. The two had already entered the arena and stood facing each other. Leia pushed up his glasses and spoke. Jiraiya was not to be outdone. He opened his mouth and attacked Raya directly, saying, "Isn't this that so-and-so?" "Yes, that's so-and-so. Did you clean your glasses?" It would have been fine if Jiraiya hadn't spoken, but once he did, Raya got even angrier and said coldly, "I hope you can still speak so lively later." At this time, there was a continuous cheers for Jiraiya on the field, but this did not affect his mood at all. Jiraiya seemed to be isolated from the outside world, with only Riga in his eyes. As the referee shouted, "The game begins," Jiraiya immediately retreated, took out a few shurikens and threw them at Riga. Leia sneered and quickly drew out 2 daggers. He moved his hand slightly and all the flying shurikens were shot down. Immediately afterwards, Raya exerted force on his feet and rushed towards Jiraiya like an arrow. Jiraiya was not panicked and started to form hand seals as he threw the shuriken. As soon as Raya knocked down the shuriken, Jiraiya formed 5 seals, then opened his mouth slightly and spit out a great fireball. Although the great fireball technique was passed down from generation to generation by the Uchiha clan, it was actually very popular in Konoha. For example, Ebisu and Mitarashi Anko had both used the great fireball technique. Looking at the great fireball coming straight at him, Leia definitely couldn't chop it with his dagger. The great fireball was not fast, and Leia dodged it by moving to the side. However, the great fireball technique seems to have never existed for the purpose of hurting people. As the most frequently used fire-style ninjutsu, the great fireball has maintained an unprecedented record. That is, great fireball has never hit anyone. Except Uchiha Shin. Jiraiya didn't expect that a great fireball could defeat Riga. The purpose of this ninjutsu was to make Riga lose his vision, and the great fireball successfully completed this task. After Riga dodged the great fireball, he found that Jiraiya was already standing there and starting to make hand seals again, and it seemed that he was preparing to continue casting ninjutsu. So Raya grasped the dagger tightly in both hands and rushed towards Jiraiya again, and the dagger drew two silver lights in the air. Then Jiraiya suddenly rushed forward, facing the dagger. Just when he was about to touch the dagger, Jiraiya's body turned into smoke and disappeared. Shadow clone. Riga was startled and suddenly heard a noise under his feet. He jumped up immediately. It turned out that Jiraiya used the decapitation technique in his heart and almost grabbed Riga's ankle. Seeing Riga leap up, Jiraiya also broke out of the ground and kicked Riga in the abdomen, sending him flying. Seeing Raya rolling around on the ground like a broken sack, Jiraiya said a little proudly, "Give you a kick, we evened." Did not expect Jiraiya to remember Raya kicked himself in the forest of death. At this time, Tsunade held her forehead in the stance and said, "Jiraiya, you idiot, why don't you use the Raise Nan?" Orochimaru replied, "No, Jiraiya and I both have average Raise Nan skills. Raise Nan cannot be used instantly. If he had just used Raise Nan, Riga would have hit him with a sword on the spot." As soon as the simple conversation ended, everyone's attention was focused on Jiraiya and Reimaru. At this time, Reimaru had already climbed up from the ground, and there was a crack on his glasses. Leiwan, who was kicked, actually laughed, and with the crack on his glasses, he even looked a little crazy. I saw Reiwa holding the dagger and rushing towards Jiraiya. At this time, Riga didn't even dodge the shuriken thrown by Jiraiya, allowing the shuriken to scratch himself, just to rush to Jiraiya as quickly as possible. Jiraiya looked at Reiwa rushing towards him, and quickly drew out two kunao, and started to fight against Reiwa's dagger. After all, an inch longer is an inch stronger. During the fight between Jiraiya and Raya, he kept getting wounds of varying depths. Jiraiya knew that this wouldn't work and he had to keep his distance. Jiraiya dodged, formed a seal, and performed the wind escape technique. Great breakthrough. The strong wind prevented Riga from moving forward for a while, and Jiraiya used the reaction force to distance himself from Riga. Seeing this, Raya rushed forward again, not giving Jiraiya a chance to breathe. However, just when Riga was about to rush in front of Jiraiya, Jiraiya performed summoning magic. Accompanied by a puff of smoke, Gamabunta appeared in the arena. As soon as Wentei appeared, Leia stopped rushing forward and began to observe the summoned beast in front of him. The strength of the summoned beast is related to the amount of chakra released by the contractor. Raya knows that with Jiraiya's current strength, he will not be able to summon a summoned beast that is too terrifying. However, the abilities of summoned beasts are varied and strange. Leia does not dare to attack rashly without understanding the abilities of the summoned beast in front of him. "Jiraiya, why did you summon me here? Is there an enemy?" Jiraiya said, "Boss Bunta, help me defeat this man in front of me." So Bunta swung the short sword and slashed at Riga. Riga dodged flexibly, but facing such a huge opponent, he found it difficult to get close to Jiraiya. He tried to get behind Bunta and attack Jiraiya, but was kicked by Bunta's back foot and flew out. After Leia stabilized his body, his eyes became even more ferocious. He began to dodge the attacks of the man and the beast until Jiraiya's chakra was exhausted. Summoning Bunta must have consumed a lot of Jiraiya's chakra, and he should be almost exhausted now. However, he can't sustain his physical strength to deal with one man and one beast at the same time. After a while, Bunta said, "Jiraiya, the time for summoning is coming. The next battle depends on you." Jiraiya nodded and said, "Thank you, Boss Bunta. Don't worry." As soon as he finished speaking, Bunta turned into smoke and disappeared. At this time, Jiraiya and Riga stood opposite each other, both of them covered in blood. At this time, both of them were not in good condition, so they prepared to make a move to decide the outcome. Jiraiya began to make hand seals and muttered, "Fire style." Seeing Jiraiya making hand seals, Riga immediately used lightning style. He was ready to rush towards Jiraiya with double dagger style, but unexpectedly, Jiraiya's hand that was making hand seals stopped immediately, and a blue ball of light condensed in his right hand. Raya no longer had chakra to change his moves at this moment, and he only hoped that Jiraiya would give him a sword before the light ball was fully condensed to interrupt his ninjutsu. There was nothing wrong with what Raya thought, because the two daggers did not hit Jiraiya's vitals due to the hasty moves, but instead hit Jiraiya's abdomen. But it doesn't matter, Riga smiled, as if he had already seen his own victory. If he was not mistaken, the severe pain would definitely make Jiraiya lose control of his chakra, thus interrupting his ninjutsu. But when Riga looked carefully, he found that the ball of light in Jiraiya's hand did not dissipate. Riga was a little dazed and asked, "Why?" Thinking of Uejian's devilish training, this little pain was nothing to Jiraiya. He has experienced death many times himself, and a mere fatal injury would not interrupt Jiraiya's ninjutsu performance at all. Jiraiya pushed the raised nan directly into Riga's abdomen and said, "Because my pain is greater than yours." Chapter 66. The battle was over, Jiraiya won the respect of everyone present, and the medical ninja immediately came in to control the injuries of the two. There were many highlights in the following battles, but the battle between Jiraiya and Riga still left the audience with endless aftertaste. After a while, the Chunin exam ended. Among them, there were 7 people from Konoha who passed the Chunin exam, the most among all ninja villages. Only Izuki Tetsu from the Hidden Cloud village passed the Chunin exam, so according to the bet, Konoha village had to give 50 million taels. The Hidden Mist village passed 4 people and ranked 2nd, and the 4th-ranked Iwagakure village had to give the Hidden Mist village 20 million taels. The Sand village ranked 3rd, so it didn't have to pay compensation, but it also didn't get anything. After it was over, several shadows started discussing the bet on the spot. The arena had stands similar to boxes. Tobirama led the 4 people into it, and they sat around the table. After sitting down, Tobirama took the lead and said, "According to the bet, the Hidden Cloud village should give us Konoha 50 million ryo." The Raikage snorted coldly and said, "Humph, it's just the result of a Chunin exam. It's just a verbal agreement and doesn't count." Tobirama frowned slightly and said seriously, "Raikage, this was decided in front of all the cages. Do you want to go back on your word now? It was originally a bet between Mizukage and Tsukikage. It is unreasonable to involve us. AI continued, do you still think that Konoha is the Konoha of the past? Without Madara and Hashirama, you are just an ordinary ninja village. Tobirama was furious at this time and asked coldly, Rikage, what do you mean by that? AI Wuzashi said, that's what I mean. We in the Hidden Cloud Village won't pay this money, do you Konoha still want to force us to pay? On the contrary, your Konoha merchants have made a lot of money from our Hidden Cloud Village. In the future, we will adjust Konoha's trade tax. Wu also agreed at this time, yes, this kind of verbal agreement itself is not valid. Huanyu also said, Wu, you are really a shameless person. No wonder you have to wrap yourself up with bandages. You must be too ashamed to show yourself to others. What did you say? Wu's injury was caused by Huanyu using the steam explosive weapon when he was young, which resulted in him having to appear in public with bandages. Huanyu's words were like rubbing salt into Wu's scars, and he even rubbed them with his hands as if it didn't hurt enough. What? You are such a shameless person, and you are so anxious. Wu had already started to form seals with his hands, and the light of dust style gathered in his palms. He said, little mustache, do you want to die here today? Tobirama slammed the table and said, enough, I won't stop you from fighting, but this is Konoha. The reason why Tobirama didn't scold AI Waki was because he was afraid of a fight in Konoha, otherwise he would be called the second Rikage who was born evil. But at this time, Wu actually wanted to use dust style in Konoha, which showed that he didn't take himself seriously. The Rikage said solemnly, now that we have come to this point, we from the Hidden Cloud Village will not continue to accompany you. If you, Konoha, insist on asking for money, then be prepared for war. With that the Rikage turned and left the stands, watching as the Rikage left, the remaining figures also left. Tobirama looked at the empty room without saying anything, and returned to the Hokage's office with a flying thunder god. At this time, Izuna had already organized all the matters concerning the end of the Chunin exam and returned to the office first. Seeing Tobirama coming back, Izuna poured him a glass of water and said, how about it, when can the compensation from Kumagakure be delivered? Fijian took the water and drank it all in one gulp. Only after drinking the cold water did Fijian's anger subside. Those shameless villains in the Hidden Cloud Village not only refused to acknowledge the bet, but also wanted to increase the trade tax of our Konoha village, and even said that if they want money, we should prepare for war. What? Izuna threw the cup to the ground and said angrily, damn it, how dare they do this? After calming down for a while, Izuna said, we should be more vigilant recently. I think the Hidden Cloud Village may invade our Konoha. Do you think so too? I also feel that the Hidden Cloud Village may have to prepare for war when they return. Those idiots thought that Big Brother and the others were really dead, so they started jumping up and down. It's okay. Even if Big Brother and the others don't take action, we can still defeat the Hidden Cloud Village. Just rest assured and prepare for the battle. With the general direction in mind, the two began to formulate policies at their desks. The next morning, all members of Class 7 gathered at the training ground. Tsukimi praised their performance highly. All members of Class 7 were promoted to Chunin, and no one failed. After becoming a Chunin, Jiraiya became a little bit proud, but he did have reason to be proud. His battle with Rega could be said to have demonstrated the style of Konoha. Teacher, we are all Chunin now, can we accept A-rank missions? Ujian nodded and said, it's no problem to accept A-level missions. Maybe I can also receive S-level missions, but S-level missions will definitely be led by me. When Jiraiya heard about the S mission, his eyes lit up. That was an S-level mission, and many ninjas had never completed it in their entire lives. Okay, don't think too much. Do you think it's easy to take an S-level mission? You should think about how to complete the A-level mission first. After that, Ujian led a few people to the mission center. Because the four of them had become Chunin, they really wanted to take on some difficult missions to test the waters and hone their abilities in the missions. As soon as he entered the mission center, the sharp-eyed Jiraiya saw a mission. Because it was the preparation period, the mission center had more tasks, and there were even S-level tasks, but they were very rare. Jiraiya picked up the mission scroll and said, S-rank mission, spy on the recent ninja movements of the Hidden Cloud Village. You may encounter most of the Hidden Cloud Village ninjas. The person who accepts this mission must be an elite JA. Nin or above. If a team accepts a mission, all team members must be no weaker than Chunin. After Jiraiya finished reading, he said, Sensei, you must be an elite JA. Nin. Do we meet the requirements to accept this mission? Ujian picked it up and looked at it, nodded, and said, my strength should be better than that of the elite JA. Nin. It seems that our team is quite destined to this mission. Are you sure you want to take this mission? We may encounter many ninjas along the way. I won't attack them if they are not strong enough to be JA. Nin. Tsunade also said, it's okay, teacher, don't worry. Seeing that the four people were very excited about the mission, Tsukimi accepted it. Because it was written in Tsukimi's file that she was an elite JA. Nin, there were no misunderstandings in the process of accepting the mission. The mission requires us to set off as soon as possible. Go pack your things now. We will gather at the village gate at 9 o'clock. Currently disbanded. As soon as Ujian finished speaking, the four of them scurried out like rabbits and started to buy some ninja tools. They were expected to be away for quite a while, so they had to prepare more. Tsukimi went to the Hokage's office to get the Chunin vests and forehead protectors for the four people, and chatted with Tobirama and Izuna at the same time. Because a war might break out, both of them were a little nervous. At this time, Jiraiya was running on the road while muttering, S-level mission, I'm looking forward to it. Chapter 67. Hey, be gentle, if you use a little more force on me, I didn't die at the hands of the enemy, but at your hands. Tsunade threw the bandage directly on Jiraiya's face and said, you are not happy about the treatment I gave you. Why are you talking so much? Jiraiya chuckled and said, I just saw that the atmosphere was a bit heavy, so I wanted to liven it up. After Jiraiya finished speaking, Tsunade picked up the bandage and continued to bandage Jiraiya. Yukino said a little worriedly, Jiraiya, you can't be so reckless next time. Do you know that you almost died just now? In actual combat, the Death Sensei will not care about us. Jiraiya nodded and said, I know. Wasn't Orochimaru about to be hit by the sword just now? I was afraid that he would be killed by the enemy directly, so I rushed forward. Orochimaru didn't follow Jiraiya's opinion at all, and said firmly, Idiot, I can definitely dodge that kind of attack. Although Orochimaru said this, there was no less worry in his eyes. Okay, I'll pay attention and not talk about these unpleasant topics. By the way, how many special JA nin have we killed? Yukino said, Second, we have been away from the village for a month so far, and we have killed 2 special JA nin and 13 Chunin in total. I didn't expect that the Hidden Cloud Village would send so many ninjas into the Land of Fire. Orochimaru took over the conversation and said, We are about to reach the Land of Lightning. We will definitely encounter more ninjas by then. We must be extra careful. Unfortunately, we haven't obtained any useful intelligence. Those Chunin have no idea about the Hidden Cloud Village's plans for the war. The mission can only be completed if we capture the special JA nin alive. Yukino said. It's okay. We'll try our luck again after I recover. If we encounter other special JA nin, we'll try to capture them alive. After resting for about a day, the 4 of them prepared to set off again. During the mission, the 4 of them could not see Uegian at all, but when the team encountered JA nin or special JA nin, Uegian would give them hints. If she encounters a JA nin, Tsukimi will deal with him directly. If she is about to encounter a special JA nin, Tsukimi will inform several people in advance and then disappear again. The 4 of them can basically find traps, and if the traps are too sophisticated, Uegian will come out to teach them, which at least makes her worthy of the title of teacher. Soon the 4 of them crossed the border of the Fire Country and arrived in the Iron Country. They replenished their consumables in the Iron Country and continued on their journey after that. Having just stepped into the Land of Thunder, they couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Suddenly, Uegian appeared in front of them and said with a relaxed expression, There is a team of special JA nin setting up an ambush 3 miles ahead, with about 5 people. Several people looked at each other, and then Orochimaru whispered, It's a bit difficult. A special JA nin alone is enough for us to drink a pot, and there are 4 ninjas whose strength is not clear around them. Let's treat them as Chunin. Jiraiya said, How about we fight a guerrilla war and try to deal with those ninjas whose strength we don't know first? Are you an idiot? Do you think the JA nin are fools, standing there waiting for you? We can only deal with them all at once, otherwise our existence will be exposed. Orochimaru replied. Indeed, if the enemy discovers our presence, we will have no choice but to withdraw from the Land of Lightning. The enemy is in the open and we are in the dark, so we will try a sneak attack first and capture as many as we can. So according to the plan, they quietly approached the team of special JA nin. Orochimaru sent out several small snakes to spy on the location of the place, with significant results. At this time, Orochimaru had already figured out the positions of the enemy special JA nin and other ninjas. Orochimaru made a few gestures in succession, and Tsunade and the others dispersed. At this time, special JA nin Ito Kita was not alert to any disturbances around him. After all, this was the territory of the Land of Lightning, and under normal circumstances he would not encounter ninjas from other countries. He accepted this mission just to lie down and earn the bounty. The mission required him to deploy defenses at the border, but as long as his own people were there, it would be enough. An occasional patrol would be enough to get the job done. It has to be said that there are always people who exploit loopholes in the rules, and that's why Tsunade and the others were given the opportunity. At this time, the 4 ninjas were chatting casually and standing very closely together. Yukino and Orochimaru had already approached several people, but they hadn't noticed yet. I saw a few small snakes slowly swimming over from the ground. When they were almost next to the few people, the small snakes instantly bit their ankles. At the same time, Orochimaru and Yukino also showed up, and their kunai directly slashed at the necks of the few people. The battle went very smoothly, and the 4 ninjas were left on the border like cannon fodder, without even being able to show their true strength. Ito Kita noticed something was wrong the moment Yukino and Orochimaru rushed out, and immediately stood up and rushed towards them. Just as Ito Kita was sprinting, a pair of hands suddenly stretched out from the ground and grabbed Ito Kita's ankles. It turned out that Jiraiya used the beheading technique in his mind. I have to say that the beheading technique in the mind is really a very useful technique. In a hurry, Ito Kita didn't pay any attention to the situation underground and could only jump up to avoid the attack from underground. But after jumping up, wouldn't he become a fish on the chopping board? At the same time, Tsunade rushed out from the woods on the other side, and with her super powerful punch that she had gathered for a long time, she directly hit Ito Kita's stomach. Ito Kita flew backwards like a shrimp and hit the tree heavily. It was done so easily. Tsunade, you wouldn't just beat him to death, would you? Jiraiya was a little surprised. He didn't expect that they could defeat all the enemies so quickly. In fact, it is understandable. Ito Kita was promoted from Chunin to special JA nin not long ago, and Ito Kita is a Genjutsu Grandmaster type special JA nin. It is quite normal for him to be taken down by a few people who have the best time, place, and people. Okay, stop talking nonsense and tie him up quickly. We have to retreat quickly. That punch just now made a loud noise. I guess there are already some ninjas coming over here. Tsunade said. So Jiraiya tied Ito Kita up, and the 4 of them quickly fled the place. Tsunade was right. Not long after they left, several ninjas came over. The leader was an elite JA nin from the Hidden Cloud Village. He looked at the traces and said, The one guarding here is Ito Kita, right? He's really a good for nothing. The other ninjas didn't dare to reply to his words, so he continued, The enemy just left not long ago, hurry up and chase them, we must capture them. After saying that, the elite JA nin led the other ninjas to chase after Tsunade and the others. They were moving very fast and it would probably not take long for them to catch up with them. It's not good. The snakes I left behind were just killed, and I deliberately sent some snakes to other directions to mislead the pursuers, but they just rushed straight towards us. Orochimaru said. What should we do then? Jiraiya said at the back of the team, carrying Ito Kita on his back. Yukino said calmly, it's okay. If we remember correctly, there is a river ahead. We can ambush there. And don't worry too much. If the opponent's strength exceeds that of the special Nin, the teacher will take action. Soon they reached the river, and Jiraiya threw Ito Kita to the other side of the river and hid in the water. Soon the elite Nin and the other ninjas came to the river and said, oh, I really miss such a stupid way of hiding. Come out, I have found you. At this moment, Ujian appeared beside elite Nin without knowing when, and said, oh. I wonder if you have noticed my existence. Chapter 68. The elite Nin passed away peacefully. The few ninjas from the hidden cloud village were all destroyed by Tsukimi's humanitarianism. Tsunade and the others swam out of the river after hearing Tsukimi's voice. However, in just a few short seconds, the elite Nin who had just spoken loudly disappeared, as if he had never appeared. Jiraiya swallowed, carried Ito Kita on his back and continued on his journey. Since they had completed the mission, the team hid carefully along the way and tried their best to avoid fighting with the ninjas from the hidden cloud village. On the way, Tsunade had to keep Ito Kita alive, otherwise the capture would be in vain, so she had to stop from time to time to heal his wounds. Because Ito Kita is a Genjutsu-type ninja, in order to prevent Ito Kita from performing Genjutsu, several people got a wooden box in the Iron Kingdom and stuffed the tied-up Ito Kita into it. It is necessary to confirm whether he is in a coma after a period of time. If Ito is about to wake up too soon, he must be knocked unconscious again. The job of carrying the box was naturally given to Jiraiya, which meant that Jiraiya was not carrying his own sister, otherwise Uemiya would have thought that he had made an appearance. After returning to Konoha safely, the few of them relaxed. Jiraiya was particularly eye-catching with a large box on his back. When a ninja of the same period who knew him asked what it was, Jiraiya answered like this. Oh, it's not something rare, it's just a special Nin from the hidden cloud village, captured alive. There is a huge difference between killing a special Nin and capturing him alive. In addition, if many ninjas know that they cannot escape, they will most likely choose to fight to the death or commit suicide in order to protect the village's intelligence. Some of the reasons are loyalty to the village, but a large part of them are also due to fear of being interrogated by a hostile village. As a ninja, you have no human rights when you are captured. Your only value is the information in your head, and the interrogation department will use every possible means to get that information out of you. In order to verify the authenticity of the intelligence, it is even possible to read the memory of the person being interrogated. As a result, there are basically no prisoners coming out alive from the interrogation department, and even if they do come out, most of them have some mental problems. Jiraiya was still trying hard to talk to others at this time, but Tsukimi and Tsunade were walking faster and faster, and soon they could not be seen anymore. When Jiraiya saw that all his teammates were gone, he quickly jogged to catch up, and soon they arrived at the mission center. After submitting the mission, the team was also responsible for sending Ito Kita to the interrogation department. As soon as I arrived at the interrogation department, a ninja with a tired face, sunken eye sockets and obvious dark circles came to take over. The staff took Ito Kita away and walked into the interrogation department without looking back, looking very busy. In fact, this is normal. The teams sent out are not just Tsukimi's team. There are other teams or Nin fighting alone, and they have also captured many prisoners. As a result, the interrogation department has been working non-stop recently. At this point, the mission of Class 7 was completely completed. The team received a total of 2 million taels, and each person could get 500,000 taels. As usual, Tsunade and the others invited Yumi to have a meal and then went their separate ways. Uejian gave a few people 2 days off, but they might go to the battlefield at any time during that period, so Uejian also informed them in advance. On the way home, Uejian passed by an izakaya. Uejian stopped, hesitated for a moment, and then walked into the izakaya. The pub was filled with a faint aroma of wine. Under the dim light, the ninjas drank in silence, with only the occasional sound of glasses clinking. Uejian found a corner to sit down and ordered 2 pots of wine and a plate of fennel beans. Ujian tasted it slowly. The wine had a fragrance of plums and the fennel beans were soft but not mushy, giving it a unique flavor. 10 minutes after Tsukimi entered the pub, a young man sat down next to her. The young man's black hair was very eye-catching and his hairstyle was quite unique, with the ends of his hair curled outwards. Hey, Uchiha Kagami. Tsukimi recognized that the person next to her was Uchiha Kagami, so she spoke. Jing looked at Ujian and found that he did not recognize the person in front of him, so he asked, excuse me, who are you? I'm Konoha Elite Nin Natsume Uejian. I've heard of your name. Uejian stretched out her hand to shake hands with Jing. Jing also stretched out his hand and shook hands with Ujian, saying, nice to meet you. Then the two began to chat. At this time, Jing no longer had to be sandwiched between the village and the family like in the original book, so he didn't seem to have any burden and looked very relaxed. Yumi thought that the Uchiha had now been completely integrated into Konoha, and it seemed that everything she had done was not in vain. Just look at Jing and you will know that Uejian's behavior has changed Jing's life. It was already late, and Uejian and Jing were ready to leave. Jing said to Uejian again, I am very happy with our conversation tonight. Ujian said, really? I am happy too. Jing's happiness came from the pleasant conversation he had with Uejian, but he didn't know what made Uejian so happy. Ujian's happiness was to find that her journey through time was not in vain, and that she was indeed quietly changing the ninja world. After returning to the nursing home, it was empty, with no one there. Normally, Madara and Hashirama would be quite lively here, and Tsukimi lay on the bed, wondering if Madara had caught up with Hashirama. Ujian was not used to sleeping on a bed, so she asked a carpenter to make a bed for her. At this time, Ujian was still very curious about what Madara and Hashirama were doing. He could actually use Flying Thunder God to go over and see their current situation, but that would miss out on the fun of the unknown. Fortunately, Uchiha didn't use Flying Thunder God to take a look, otherwise the shock would be no less than using Shadow Clone. Meanwhile, in a distant mountain cemetery, Madara and Hashirama were both in Itama's laboratory. Mada, if you have the guts, put me down quickly. At this time, Hashirama was tied up and hung on the tree where White Zetsu was born. Oh, I hoisted you up there myself, so why would I let you down? At this time, Madara was holding a whip in his hand and whipping Hashirama while laughing wildly ha 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 ha. After a while, Banjian came over angrily and said angrily, can you two shut up? Madara immediately stopped smiling, but Hashirama said excitedly, Itama, hurry up and save me, hurry up. As a result, Itama acted as if he didn't know Hashirama and said to Madara, I don't care about what happens between you two, just don't disturb me while I'm doing the experiment. And brother, Madara's cell solution will be ready in a month, just hold on for another month. When Hashirama heard this, he lost all his luster. Will this kind of life continue for another month? Madara nodded, indicating that she would not let Hashirama speak again. She performed wood style on the spot and blocked Hashirama's mouth with a piece of wood. At this time, Hashirama could only whimper. We can see here how mean Madara is. He actually used Hashirama's wood style to block Hashirama's mouth, and the degree of sarcasm was maximized. So Madara picked up the whip and whipped Hashirama again, and from time to time he had to stop and cover the corners of his raised mouth to restrain himself from laughing wildly. He remembered that Kurama teacher also slapped him in the same way, and it really relieved the pressure. Madara couldn't afford to offend Itama. In the future, he expected Itama to continue researching some strange things to make him stronger, so Madara would meet all of Itama's requests. Chapter 69. In the morning, Hashirama was awakened by Madara's whip, while Tsukimi was awakened by the ninja hawk outside the window. I saw a goshawk pecking at the window with its sharp beak. After Uejian got up, she opened the window. The goshawk took out the letter with its beak, threw it down and flew away. Tsukimi opened the letter and saw that it was indeed a notice from the Hokage's office, asking all J.A. Nin who did not have important tasks to gather in the conference room immediately. After a simple wash, Uejian went to the meeting room. As soon as Uejian entered the door, Jing saw him. Jing waved at Uejian and motioned Uejian to sit next to him. Tsukimi saw the mirror and found that Hiruzen, Danzo, Koharu and others were sitting near the mirror. It seemed that the relationship between them was quite good. After Tsukimi sat next to Jing, Izuna nodded to her and continued to work on the meeting. At this time, the bored Tsukimi and Kagami started chatting, and Hiruzen would interject from time to time. After all, he had met Tsukimi twice and was familiar with her. Soon all the J.A. Nin who were supposed to come arrived. The J.A. Nin here refers to special J.A. Nin, J.A. Nin and elite J.A. Nin, that is, all the high-end combat forces that Konoha can currently mobilize. Tobirama clapped his hands, and the whole audience fell silent. Tobirama then began to talk about the content of the meeting. In recent days, the interrogation department has summarized all the information obtained from the interrogation. At the same time, after analysis by the Nara clan, it can be determined that the Hidden Cloud Village is preparing to launch a war against our Konoha. As soon as Tobirama finished speaking, the scene became a little chaotic. Izuna shouted, silence. Soon the conference room became quiet again, but everyone had a different expression on their face. Some people guessed that war would break out, so they remained calm after hearing the news. After hearing this, the ninjas who were unaware of the situation showed more worry on their faces. Ujian observed Jing and others and found that they looked normal. It seemed that they had known that the war was coming. After all, these people are the new generation of elites of Konoha, and they will be the ones who will carry the banner for Konoha in the future. At this time, Tobirama continued, according to the intelligence we have obtained, the Hidden Cloud Village will invade the Land of Fire within 3 days. At this moment, I declare that Konoha has officially entered a state of war. After Tobirama finished speaking, the faces of the ninjas present became solemn, and the whole conference room was filled with a solemn atmosphere. As a J.A. Nin, each of them had countless blood on his hands, and at this moment, the murderous aura filled the conference room. Then Tobirama began to announce the arrangements for the war. Hiruzen, you will lead the main force of Konoha to station at the northern border of the Land of Fire to resist the invasion of the Hidden Cloud Village. Hiruzen will be the commander-in-chief of the northern battlefield, and Danzo will be the deputy commander. Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo stood up at the same time and said yes, their faces serious and respectful. Then Tobirama continued to announce, in order to prevent the Hidden Cloud Village from invading Konoha by water, Jing will lead the other ninjas of Konoha to the eastern border of the Land of Fire, and Jing will be the commander of the eastern battlefield. Jing stood up and said yes, indicating that he would accept the order. Koharu Tachina is the captain of the medical team, responsible for wartime treatment. Akamichi Tofu is the captain of the logistics team, responsible for all wartime supplies and food transportation. Mito Kadoen is responsible for intelligence infiltration and leads a group of ninjas. After the three said yes, Tobirama said, Natsume Tsukimi will be the captain of the mobile team. She will lead Team 7 to make their own decisions on the battlefield and kill enemy ninjas. After hearing Tobirama's words, all the ninjas present focused their attention on Natsume. It was the first time that most of the ninjas heard the name Natsume. The first few ninjas are all well-known and powerful contemporary ninjas whose strength is obvious to all, but who is Natsume Tsukimi? In fact, everyone is not thinking about the shady dealings or anything like that, they are just curious about how strong Tsukimi is. The second generation is a mobile squad, and it would be impossible to do that without strong power. Ujian stood up and nodded to show that she understood. Tobirama concluded, the sharp blades of Konoha, let us tear apart those chickens and dogs of the Hidden Cloud Village. I declare that the war between Konoha and the Hidden Cloud Village has officially begun. After the meeting, Hiruzen came forward and invited Uejian, Jing, and others to have dinner together, and everyone happily agreed. The atmosphere in the restaurant's private room was a little depressing. Hiruzen was the first to break the silence. This war cannot be underestimated. There are many masters in the Hidden Cloud Village. Jing nodded, there are many strong taijutsu masters in the Hidden Cloud Village. We must be careful of their blitzkrieg. Intelligence work is really important. Midam and Yan nodded seriously. Don't worry, I will do my best to do the intelligence work. Tsukimi was thinking about the combat plan of her mobile team, considering that this war would definitely make Tsunade and others grow rapidly. Danzo suddenly spoke up. Tsukimi, how strong are your team 7 members? Don't ask us to rescue you when the time comes. Uchiha responded calmly, don't worry. The atmosphere was a little awkward at this time. At this time, the waiter brought the food. Hiruzen quickly raised his glass. No matter what, let's have a good meal first. We may not have such leisurely days in the future. Everyone clinked their glasses. After the meal, everyone went their separate ways. Uejian returned to the Konoha nursing home and asked Hedwig to gather the members of Team 7 at training ground number 7. After everyone arrived, Ujian told them the content of today's meeting. The 4 of them looked very solemn after listening. After all, the word war was too unfamiliar to them and they had never experienced it personally. Ujian looked at the 4 solemn people and said slowly, don't worry too much. Maybe this war is a chance for you to make a name for yourself. Tsunade clenched her fists and her eyes became firm. Teacher, just leave it to us. After all, Tsunade is the woman who will become the empress. To unify the ninja world, she will definitely have to go through countless bloody storms. Just treat this war as a preview. Yukino and Orochimaru also nodded. Jiraiya said like an optimist, let them see how powerful Master Jiraiya is. Several people were amused by Jiraiya's words. After this commotion, everyone was not so nervous anymore. They hurried to practice for a while before the war started. Then Uejian began to arrange training plans according to the characteristics of each person. Yumi asked Tsunade to start learning 8 gates. At this time, Tsunade's physique was already able to withstand opening 2 gates. Orochimaru and Jiraiya are still proficient in Raise Nan, and Yukino Tsukimi begins to let her try to learn Reikari. But to be honest, I can't learn anything in just half a day, so I'll just take it as a way to relieve the pressure on a few people. The next day, Konoha was filled with a solemn and murderous atmosphere, and many ninjas rushed out of the Konoha gate one after another. Ujian led Team 7 and followed the main force. Ujian plans to take a few people to the north of the Fire Country for training first, as that must be the main battlefield. After arriving at the designated location, the spies reported that the army of the Hidden Cloud Village had been stationed at the border of the Land of Lightning. It seemed that the two countries had decided to engage in small-scale frictions first and then enter into a decisive battle. At this time, Hiruzen had already begun issuing orders in the combat conference room. On the one hand, he sent ninjas into the main battlefield, and on the other hand, he arranged some teams to infiltrate the Land of Rice and the Land of Iron to prevent the Hidden Cloud Village from invading the Land of Fire from the two countries. Following Hiruzen's order, the battlefield meat grinder began to operate, and countless ninjas rushed into the battlefield one after another to protect the homes behind them. Uejian's eyes were stern. It's finally about to begin. The battle started, and Uejian led Team 7 into the Iron Kingdom, intending to let the 4 of them adapt to the battlefield first. In this battle, Tsunade and the other 3 will either become famous or be buried in a foreign land. Chapter 70. In this battle, Tsukimi also brought 9 tails with her because she guessed that the Hidden Cloud Village might send 8 tails to the battlefield. Along the way, Ujian had almost no chance to attack. It might be that the ninjas in the Iron Country all aimed to infiltrate the Fire Country to obtain intelligence, so there were no ninjas with particularly high combat power. For such a long time, Tsukimi didn't see a single elite JA. Nin, and although Tsunade and the others still couldn't defeat the JA. Nin, they were able to escape, so Tsukimi had nothing to do for a while. Sure enough, the belief in survival is an inexhaustible driving force for human progress. In just a few days, all members of Class 7 made obvious progress. During this period of time, Tsunade and the others basically had no rest. Every day they were either fighting. At the same time, the strength of Tsunade and the others increased rapidly. It used to be difficult to kill Special JA. Nin, but now I can kill Special JA. Nin stably, and now I can fight with JA. Nin for a few moves when I meet him. It is certain that we cannot win the fight, but at least a few people can escape safely. Therefore, now Tsukimi will only take action when the team encounters an elite JA. Nin. Because Tsunade and Yukino are so recognizable, and the team is very active on the battlefield in the Land of Iron, the Hidden Cloud Village has sent ninjas many times but has failed to capture this team. Facing 4 Chonin, the Hidden Cloud Village actually lost several Special JA. Nin. The Reikage was too embarrassed to tell anyone about it and felt very embarrassed. At this time, Tsunade and her companions had become thorns in the eyes of Reikage, so Reikage decided that Tsunade and her companions must stay in the Land of Iron permanently. At this time, Reikage knocked on the table lightly, and an Anbu appeared beside Reikage. Which elite JA? Nin are still in the village. Anbu said, the only elite JA. Nin who remains in the village without a mission is Miyamoto Sosuke. Really? Go call Miyamoto Sosuke over. Anbu received the order and disappeared instantly. Not long after, Miyamoto Sosuke knocked on the door of the Reikage's office and walked in. Reikage-sama, you were looking for me. Sosuke, you're here. Have you heard about what happened to Tsunade's team on the Iron Country battlefield recently? It's the team that Hashirama and Madara's granddaughter are in, right? I heard that they caused us some trouble on the battlefield in the Iron Kingdom recently. Yes, so I want you to get rid of this team. Master Reikage, I would like to ask if you have enough information about the people who are protecting this team? With the status of Tsunade and Yukino, Konoha would never send only 4 people to the battlefield. There must be a mentor with them. Miyamoto Sosuke, as one of the stronger elite JA. Nin in the Hidden Cloud Village, I would like to ask how you would fare against Konoha's special JA. Nin. If I were to encounter Uchiha Kagami or Sarutobi Hiruzen, I would flee immediately to preserve my combat power. If I were to face Akamichi Tofu, Mito Kato-en, Yutain Koharu and Shimura Denso, I would be able to remain undefeated. If it's against other elite JA. Nin of Konoha, I'm sure I can kill them as long as they don't run away. The Reikage nodded and said with satisfaction, according to the information obtained by the spies, Tobirama and Izuna are still in the Hokage building. The other ninjas you just mentioned are all on the front line, so the instructor of Tsunade and others may be an elite JA. Nin with reasonable strength. The Reikage continued, Tobirama obviously wants to use the war to train a few people, but this is during the war, and Tobirama can't send a strong man like Sarutobi Hiruzen to protect these people. So I would like to ask you to kill Tsunade and the others. Do you have the confidence to do so? Miyamoto Sosuke. Miyamoto Sosuke nodded and said respectfully, Master Reikage, I will definitely complete this mission successfully. Let's see how I can bring the bodies of several people to you. After saying this, Miyamoto Sosuke disappeared in a flash. Reikage was very satisfied with Miyamoto Sosuke's confidence, and he was very convinced of Miyamoto Sosuke's strength. The Reikage could already imagine Tobirama's furious look after hearing the news of Tsunade's and others' death, but so what? Tobirama could only blame himself for being too careless. Miyamoto Sosuke ran all the way, his goal was the land of iron. He spent 3 hours traveling at full speed and rushed from the hidden cloud village to the border of the land of lightning. After arriving at the border of the land of lightning, Miyamoto Sosuke went straight into the combat command center. After recovering his energy at the combat command center, he began to ask Tsunade and others for information. After learning the approximate location of Tsunade and others, Miyamoto Sosuke set off again without stopping, just to complete the order of Lord Reikage as soon as possible. At this time, Yumi was making iron pot stew for Tsunade and the others. The ingredients were all freshly bought from Konoha. Apart from anything else, it was really convenient for Flying Thunder God to buy vegetables. Tsunade and the others didn't want to eat the iron pot stew, but mainly because Tsukimi was greedy. After dipping the pot stickers in the sticky soup, they felt so happy that they were about to die after taking a bite. At this moment, Tsunade and the others were covered in blood, sitting on the ground with tired faces and messy hair. Although the team looked very embarrassed, their eyes were fixed on the iron pot on the shelf. Eating the meal cooked by Yujian was one of the few things that the group looked forward to the most recently. Class 7 didn't even have time to take a shower at this time, which showed how tired they were during this period. After sprinkling the seasoning, Yuejian covered the pot. It would take another 30 minutes to cook on high heat until the sauce thickened. As soon as she put the lid on the pot, Yuejian sensed that a chakra source was rushing towards this place at a rapid speed. Tsukimi closed her eyes and sensed carefully, and found that the person who came was an elite JA. Nin from the hidden cloud village, and it seemed that their target was Tsunade and her companions. Yujian said, by the way, you guys don't know my true strength yet. Several people nodded. They really didn't know Yujian's true strength. Neither Tsunade nor Yukino had ever seen their grandfather unleash his full strength, and as their master, Tsukimi's strength must be even more terrifying. But that kind of strength was beyond their imagination. Orochimaru and Jiraiya only knew that Tsukimi was very powerful. At that time, the elite JA. Nin was defeated by Tsukimi in just a few seconds. The two did not even see a single scene, so they did not note Tsukimi's specific strength. If we have to say that Tsukimi took action twice in total, one was when Nine Tails bombarded the Land of Thunder, and the other was when elite JA. Nin was chasing several people, but both times Tsukimi was not seen actually taking action. Yujian said, an elite JA. Nin from the hidden cloud village just happened to come. He is quite powerful. We will compete with each other in a few moves. You can take this opportunity to learn from him. Yujian continued, Kurama, you are responsible for taking care of the iron pot. Remember to remind me in 30 minutes, then we will have dinner. Tsukimi's tone was as relaxed as if she was going downstairs to pick up a package. Nine Tails said he understood, and then he pulled out a notebook and a pen from somewhere. Jiraiya noticed Nine Tails' strange behavior and came over to ask, hello, what are you doing? Jiraiya was also very curious about why Nine Tails took out a pen and paper. Nine Tails slowly opened the notebook and replied to Jiraiya as he turned the pages, study. Jiraiya was very surprised and asked, do you have to learn even if you are so powerful? Jiraiya still remembered clearly how Nine Tails destroyed an island with his tailed beast ball. Nine Tails turned to the latest page, which had some crooked handwriting on it, and said, kid, I can only say that the road of learning is endless. If you still have this mentality in the future, death is inevitable sooner or later. Jiraiya was startled and said, thank you, senior. I'm grateful for your teaching. At this time, Miyamoto Sosuke had appeared in front of several people. He looked at Yuejian and said, you must be their instructor. I am the one who is about to kill you. My name is Miyamoto Sosuke. You, tell me your name. Yuejian patted the corner of her clothes, which had a little ash from the fire, and said, Elite JA. Nin of Konoha Natsume Yuejian. Nine Tails picked up the pen and wrote on his notebook, Step 1, pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger. The first page of Nine Tails' notebook was written as Pretending Training Manual. Chapter 71. At this time, Miyamoto Sosuke had been searching for information in his mind. As a ninja, information was very important, but he had never heard of the name Natsume Tsukimi. Since I have never heard of him, the person in front of me can't be too strong. A ninja's strength is not only gained through training, but also through fighting. Strong men like Hiruzen and Kagami gained fame through fighting. Although the war did not break out when the few people became famous, the friction between the villages was uninterrupted, and the few people proved their strength through the friction. Miyamoto probably had an idea of a the strength of the person in front of him, and he was probably an elite JA. Nin with relatively good strength. It's not that Miyamoto didn't consider that Yumi was a genius in cultivation, and that she could surpass Hiruzen and others in strength just by practicing. There is a huge gap in strength between ninjas who have never been on the battlefield and those who have not. Flowers in a greenhouse are always good looking but useless. But the possibility of that is really too small. Without experiencing fighting, even a genius would have to practice for nearly 100 years to reach the level of Jing and others. Who can live that long? It has to be said that Miyamoto's analysis was very good. Knowing what was going on, he used a teleportation technique to appear in front of Tsukimi, unsheathed his sword and prepared to cut Tsukimi in half. Tsukimi jumped back and dodged Miyamoto's attack by sticking close to the blade. It looked like she had barely dodged it with all her might. Miyamoto stuck his long sword into the ground and said, a physical ninja? You're pretty fast, but unfortunately I'm faster. After saying that, Miyamoto Sosuke activated the lightning-style chakra mode, and electric lights continued to emerge from his body. Miyamoto's speed continued to increase, and even if Yukino activated the Sharingan, she could not catch up with Miyamoto's movements. Miyamoto's figure kept flashing around Tsukimi, and the long sword in his hand danced vigorously. The dense sword light enveloped Tsukimi, as if it was going to cut through the space. Unfortunately, this is Hokage. No matter how strong Miyamoto is, he cannot cut the space. Even Kai who opened the 8 gates can only distort the space. At this time, Tsukimi was like a dandelion dancing in the wind, always barely dodging Miyamoto's sword. As Miyamoto's sword speed became faster and faster, Tsukimi's figure became more and more ghostly. That kind of dodging speed was simply not something a human could do. Looking at Uejian's figure, Miyamoto broke out in a cold sweat. Is this person really a human? Miyamoto stopped the knife in his hand and murmured, so you are a Genjutsu-type ninja. When did I get hit by Genjutsu? Then Miyamoto forced his chakra to flow turbulently. After opening his eyes, he found Tsukimi standing not far away. Miyamoto said confidently, you are indeed a Genjutsu-type ninja. Fortunately, I danced with my sword quickly just now, so you didn't have the chance to attack me, otherwise you would have succeeded. At this time, Miyamoto was absolutely convinced that Tsukimi was a Genjutsu-type ninja. As for why Tsukimi didn't use ninjutsu to attack him just now, Miyamoto could also figure it out. The sword light just now enveloped herself like the Hyuga family's Kaden. If Yumi used ninjutsu to attack herself, the sword light would definitely tear the ninjutsu into pieces. Although you will be hurt when the shredded ninjutsu hits you, the damage will be much smaller. At the same time, the genjutsu will also be untied by external attacks, which will make you more careful about the opponent's genjutsu. Just now, Uchiha was obviously planning to wait until his strength was exhausted and then kill him with one blow. Fortunately, he realized that he was hit by genjutsu, otherwise he would be in danger. Miyamoto said, as expected of someone who can be the teacher of the princess of Konoha, his strength is indeed extraordinary. Fortunately, I just found out that I was hit by genjutsu, otherwise I might have died. Jiraiya was puzzled at this time, did this person just get hit by a genjutsu? How come I didn't notice it? Orochimaru said, this kind of battle is beyond our comprehension. Maybe he was really hit by a genjutsu just now. Yukino was a little surprised and said, are you too serious? The other party obviously didn't get hit by the genjutsu. Orochimaru replied, I know, I just wanted to tease Jiraiya. At this point Miyamoto continued, what do you use as the medium for genjutsu? Eyes? Gestures? Or voice? At this moment, Miyamoto realized when he was hit by the genjutsu. It turned out that the genjutsu was released the moment Tsukimi introduced herself. It turns out that no elite nin can be underestimated. At this time, Miyamoto turned the lightning-style chakra mode to the maximum level and concentrated the electric light around his ears, using the crackling sound of the sparks to cover up Tsukimi's voice. I now have all the information you need. You have no chance of winning. Miyamoto said as he continued to rush towards Tsukimi with a knife in hand. The sword light was also dense, but Tsukimi blocked all of Miyamoto's attacks with just her right hand. Miyamoto looked at Tsukimi's casual movements and unchanging expression, and cold sweat broke out on his body. Miyamoto stopped his sword at this time, jumped back, and distanced himself from Uejian, and said, no, I am sure that I am not hit by genjutsu now, so you are now your true strength. I didn't expect Konoha to quietly produce a strong man like you, but I saw that you only used taijutsu the whole time, not ninjutsu. It seems that you are specialized in taijutsu. Then don't blame me for using ninjutsu, lightning style. Sandamu Lyudu. Miyamoto opened his hands and made a hugging gesture. A ball of light condensed in each hand, and countless lightning scattered like silver snakes, tearing everything to pieces wherever it went. When the lightning struck Tsukimi, she was already standing there as if nothing had happened. Only then did Miyamoto realize that he had hit a wall. But Miyamoto still did not give up, and tried his best to transfer chakra into lightning-style Sandamu just to give himself a chance to escape. Miyamoto finally realized that Tsukimi seemed to have been playing tricks on him, but this was also what Miyamoto wanted. As long as Tsukimi didn't use her real skills, he would have a chance to escape. At this time, the thunderball in Miyamoto's hand became more and more dazzling, and the scattered lightning became more terrifying. One of them even struck towards Tsunade and others. Ninetales was trying hard to take notes. He was so engrossed that he didn't notice the incoming attack. Just as the lightning was about to strike them, Ninetales finally came to his senses. The four tails tightly wrapped around the waists of several people, and they jumped directly into the air to avoid the attack from Miyamoto. However, the four people and the fox managed to escape, but the pot was torn into pieces by the lightning. Ninetales' pupils began to tremble, and he carefully led Tsunade and the others to retreat. Tsunade and the others were a little puzzled by Ninetales' behavior, but did not say anything. Because they found that a very powerful chakra erupted from Ujian's body, and the simple escape of chakra caused the ground to crack. After releasing ninjutsu, Miyamoto looked at his ninjutsu record and felt that he had only overturned a pot. At this time Ujian said lightly, you overturned my pot. Her tone was cold and without any emotion, as if she was a ghost crawling out of the underworld. Miyamoto gritted his teeth and said, so what? Tsukimi's figure suddenly disappeared, and when she reappeared, she was standing right in front of Miyamoto. She gathered power in her right fist and landed on Miyamoto before he could react. Ujian murmured, you already have a way to die. Miyamoto's body seemed to be attacked by dust style and dissipated in an instant. Uejian's fist wind had already rushed into the sky, even tearing the distant clouds in half. The camera turns to Ninetales and Team 7 running for their lives. Jiraiya asks against the wind, Senior, where are we going? Ninetales said, Kid, shut up right now. The most urgent thing is to buy an iron pot and cook it. Chapter 72. Oh, it smells so good. At this time, Ujian and the others had already started eating around the iron pot. Ninetales bought the iron pot and ingredients in the Iron Kingdom as quickly as possible and cooked while rushing back. One tail was holding a pot, one tail was burning a fire, and another tail was constantly stirring and adding seasonings. This scene refreshed Tsunade and the others' views. When I just returned to Uemian, Nine Tails had already prepared the iron pot stew, which was delicious and fragrant. At least a few people were enjoying the meal, and only Miyamoto Sosuke was injured. After eating, Tsukimi and a few others evacuated the Iron Kingdom first. Miyamoto Sosuke's long absence from report would definitely arouse the Raikage's vigilance, and he would then definitely send more ninjas to the Iron Kingdom to investigate the situation. Therefore, the Iron Country is no longer suitable for Team 7 to continue their training. It just so happens that everyone is very tired recently, so let them rest in the headquarters for a while and then go to the most intense battlefield. Just as Yuejian and others were rushing back, Hiruzen was sitting in the command center feeling a little anxious. Just now he received information from the front line that the supplies sent to the main battlefield camp were actually robbed by those reckless people from the Hidden Cloud Village. The main battlefield is not just a battlefield. Both sides have set up some camps on the main battlefield to facilitate wartime supplies and treatment. Now that the supplies have been hijacked by the Hidden Cloud Village, it is a bit terrifying. The current supplies in the camp can only keep the camp running normally for 2.5 days, and 2.5 days are not enough to transport another batch of supplies from Konoha to the camp. Because a group of ninjas from the Hidden Cloud Village have infiltrated the territory of the Land of Fire, the transport team cannot travel at full speed, otherwise they will be easily discovered. Of course, Konoha also has ninjas lying in ambush in the Land of Lightning, who may be able to deal a fatal blow to the Hidden Cloud Village at the critical moment. At this time, Hiruzen was preparing to transfer part of the headquarters supplies to the camp. The camp must not be lost, otherwise the lives of the frontline ninjas would be difficult to guarantee. Although this will make it difficult for the command center to operate, supplies from the rear will be delivered soon, so there will be no problem getting through the next few days. However, who should be sent to transport the supplies gave Hiruzen a headache. At present, the Hidden Cloud Village also knew that the supplies in the Konoha camp were tight. The next step was to surround the camp and prevent the Konoha transport team from arriving successfully, and then the camp would be naturally taken. Therefore, this transportation mission is extremely difficult, and it is impossible to complete this mission without strong strength. The more Hiruzen thought about it, the more headache he got. He even wanted to twist off the head of the hijacked transport team captain. Currently, the only people in the command center who can complete this task are himself and Danzo, but if either of them leaves, it may cause the other party to directly attack the command center. Just when Hiruzen was considering whether to transfer Mito Kato and first, a ninja reported that Team 7 had arrived at the headquarters. Hiruzen was very happy when he heard this. He thought that Natsume Tsukimi, the squad leader of Team 7, should be very strong. Although he didn't know his specific strength, the fact that second generation could assign tasks to Tsukimi alone showed that they were very convinced of his strength. Hiruzen hurried out of the command center to meet Tsukimi who had arrived. After meeting, Hiruzen exchanged a few words with Tsukimi and then arranged for Tsukimi to rest first. Hiruzen was still very smart. The second generation leader had said that Tsukimi should be allowed to act freely, so he had no right to command Tsukimi at all. So Hiruzen could only ask Tsukimi to take on this task, and Tsukimi also had the right to refuse. Since you are asking someone to do something for you, you must show your attitude and not make requests as soon as you meet them. In the evening, Hiruzen brought a pot of wine and asked the logistics staff to prepare a few dishes. After packing them up, he walked into Yuejian's tent. Tsunade and the others were able to benefit from Tsukimi's help and had 4 meat dishes, 3 vegetable dishes and a bowl of soup. The wine that Hiruzen brought was similar to fruit wine, with a very low alcohol content. It would not make a ninja drunk at all, it was just for the feeling. Hiruzen and Tsukimi were chatting happily at the table. Just when Hiruzen was about to mention the robbery of the transport team, Danzo walked into Tsukimi's tent without saying hello. After entering, Danzo frowned slightly and said, "It's already wartime, and you still have the mood to eat and drink." Hiruzen tried to smooth things over. "It's okay, Danzo. We don't have anything to do tonight. Drinking less won't have any impact." Danzo was still very responsible. As soon as he learned that the transport team had been robbed, he immediately went to the headquarters to find Hiruzen to discuss the matter. When they arrived, they found that Hiruzen was not there. When they asked, they found out that Hiruzen had gone to look for Tsukimi with some wine. So Danzo immediately rushed to Yuejian's camp, ready to scold the two of them. Danzo did not respond to Hiruzen's words, but directly asked, "Hiruzen, do you know that the transport team has been hijacked? If we do nothing, the camp will be in danger." Hiruzen nodded and said, "I know, so I plan to send a small team with some of the headquarters supplies to support the camp first." Danzo was quite smart, and nodded, saying, "Indeed, this is the only way, but neither you nor I can transport this batch of supplies, and no one else is capable of doing it." As he spoke, Danzo's gaze fell on Tsukimi. At this moment, he realized why Hiruzen came to find Tsukimi, but he sneered at Hiruzen's behavior. Why not just order Yujian to go? Why go to such trouble? Danzo said coldly to Yuejian, "Konoha Ja. Nin Natsume Yuejian, now I order you to lead Team 7 to transport supplies to the battlefield camp tomorrow." As soon as Danzo opened his mouth, Hiruzen knew that something bad was going to happen. Just as he was about to stop him, Tsukimi spoke. Yujian slowly picked up the wine glass, took a sip, and said, "Oh? What if I don't agree?" Danzo immediately became furious and shouted angrily, "Natsume Yuejian, what do you mean? Now I order you as a battlefield commander to take on this mission." I have to say that Danzo's choice of words was very clever, he simply omitted the word deputy in his title of deputy commander. But to be honest, Danzo was indeed doing it for Konoha at the moment, that cannot be denied. Tsukimi did not answer Danzo, but just drank her wine and picked up her food. Tsunade and the others were a little scared by this atmosphere. At this time, the members of Team 7 hated Danzo's attitude very much. When Danzo saw that Tsukimi was ignoring him, he pulled out his kunao and said, "Natsume Tsukimi, if you disobey the command again, I have the right to kill you on the spot according to the regulations." Yujian put the wine glass on the table at this time and said to Danzo, "Attack, even if you attack first, I can kill you." Just when the two were in a stalemate, Hiruzen slammed the table and said to Danzo, "Shut up. Danzo. You have no right to order Uemi around, get out now." But, Hiruzen. When Danzo was about to say something, Hiruzen interrupted him and said, "That's enough, Danzo. I am the commander-in-chief." Suddenly Danzo was speechless and could only say to Hiruzen, "Hiruzen, you will regret this." Then he left Yuejian's tent. After Danzo left, Hiruzen sincerely apologized to Yuejian and then left. Tsunade took a while to recover from her previous state and asked Yumi if she wanted to accept the mission tomorrow. Yujian said that if Hiruzen came to invite again tomorrow morning, he would accept the invitation. If he didn't come, he would take a few people to the main battlefield for some training. After that, they went to sleep. The next morning, Hiruzen stood in front of Yuejian's tent early, wanting to ask Yuejian for help. Again. Chapter 73. When Hiruzen just stood at Yuemi's door, Yuemi woke up. Sometimes being too perceptive isn't a good thing. For example, Yujian can't sleep at all now. This is just like Madara not allowing anyone to follow him when he goes to the toilet. Now that they were awake, Yumi didn't plan to bother Hiruzen. After all, Hiruzen's attitude towards her was still very good. Yujian got up and left the tent to discuss the mission details with Hiruzen. At this time, Team 7 was still soundly sleeping, and Yujian's movements did not wake them up. On the one hand, they were so tired that they finally had a good night's sleep. On the other hand, with Yujian by their side, they felt extremely relieved. Outside the tent, the two men finalized the mission details in no time. At this time, Hiruzen hurried to find someone to prepare supplies and carriages. Around noon, Yuejian and others would protect the transport team and set off. During the war, the transportation of materials mainly relied on traditional horse-drawn carriages. Because a large amount of materials had to be transported at one time, the cost of using sealing scrolls was too high. At around 10 o'clock in the morning, Tsunade and the others woke up one after another. After Yuejian told them the mission information, Tsunade and the others went to prepare. By noon, the transport team had assembled and was ready to set off at any time, with 5 horse-drawn carriages filled with supplies. It included food, various ninja tools, medical supplies, military pills, and even 2 boxes of detonating talismans. Seeing that there were so many supplies prepared temporarily, Yuejian asked Hiruzen how many supplies were stolen from Konoha. Hiruzen said with a painful look on his face, "The supplies that were stolen from us were about as much as 15 wagons, which could have kept the camp running for more than a month." Speed a euro is of the essence in war, and after everyone gathered, Yujian was ready to set off with the transport team. As the captain of this mission, Yujian had the highest command authority in the team. At the same time, there are 2 nin in the team, plus there are 20 chonin in Team 7, so the team configuration is already very luxurious. Then Yujian led the team out. Because the horses were not ninja beasts, and each carriage was fully loaded, the team's progress was relatively slow. The 2 nin in the team are Sarutobi Yoshi and Shimura Nobaya. Among them, Shimura Nobaya has a vague hostility towards Tsukimi. Tsukimi can easily guess that Shimura Nobaya was sent by Danzo to monitor her. As for whether Shimura Shinai would attack her, Yumi was still sure that he would not attack her. When he was young, Danzo was not so cruel. But Yuejian was sure that Shimura Shinai would say something disgusting to her along the way, so Yuejian planned to use her absolute strength to shut him up. After all, she is invincible, why should she endure these bullshit? Yujian doesn't understand why some people who pretend to be cool have to act like grandsons at the beginning. This is not the way to pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger. After the team set off, Sarutobi Yoshi ran to Tsukimi to ask about the arrangements for this mission, because he found that Tsukimi was slow to order the ninja to investigate the situation. A normal transportation mission would definitely require sending out many ninjas to gather intelligence on the enemy and constantly adjust the route based on the enemy's location. If the enemy is lying in ambush on the road that must be passed, some ninjas will be needed to lead the enemy away to buy time for the transport team to pass. If the enemy cannot be lured away, all enemy ninjas must be killed as quickly as possible, so seeing that Tsukimi has not sent out ninjas yet, Sarutobi Yoshi hurried over to ask. "Master Yuejian, should we send out the scout team now?" Yujian sat on the supplies and said, "No need, just let all the teams sit safely on the carriages, and don't worry about anything else." Tsukimi's voice was not small at all. Shimura Shin had been paying attention to the situation here. As soon as Tsukimi finished speaking, Shimura Shin couldn't help but say, "Captain, you are not kidding, are you going to make our entire team die because of your unreliability?" In fact, what Shimura Shinai said was also what many ninjas present thought in their hearts. They were not aware of Tsukimi's true strength. Even if Sarutobi Hiruzen himself came, he would not dare to be so arrogant, so they didn't know why Yuemi dared to say that. Tsukimi ignored Shimura Shinai, but if he spoke any more, she was ready to shut him up forever. A single fly may not be a big deal, but if it keeps buzzing around you, you're not far from death. Yuejian stood up and said, "Come out." Truth-seeking ball splashes in a radius of 250 miles. After Yuejian finished speaking, black balls continued to appear around him. I saw these black balls constantly rotating around Yuejian, looking harmless. Others may not know what this thing is, but Nine Tails knows. Now, I think the only ones who know about the truth-seeking ball are the nine-tailed beasts and Black Zetsu. Nine Tails got furious when looking at these truth-seeking balls. When did this guy learn this trick? Jiraiya moved closer to Tsukimi and was very curious about the black ball summoned by his teacher. He thought it was some special ninja tool and was about to touch it with his hand, but Nine Tails quickly slapped his hand down. "Little ghost, don't you want your hand anymore? I don't know how you are still alive. You are so curious. If you had touched it just now, your hand would have been gone." Jiraiya was shocked when he heard this. He knew that the fox in front of him would not fool him, so he asked, "Senior, what is this black ball?" At this time, Tsunade, Yukino and Orochimaru also came over. They were also very curious about what this black ball was. Teacher Nine's small classroom started, and Nine Tails said slowly, "You all know the Sage of Six Paths, right?" Tsunade replied, "I know, he is the Sage of Six Paths who is said to have founded the ninja world, right?" "That's right, little girl, but I can tell you that the Sage of Six Paths is not a legend, it really exists and has a history of more than 1,000 years." Yukino also said, What? Are the Sage of Six Paths real people? I always thought it was just a story. That person's existence is not a story. Okay, I'm getting off topic. The black ball in front of you is called the Truth-Seeking Ball, a spell used by the Sage of Six Paths. Ninetales continued, I see traces of you learning Sage Jutsu. If you hadn't learned Sage Jutsu and encountered this, your bodies would be destroyed. Jiraiya only heard the main point and immediately said, ah. Then the teacher's strength is comparable to that of the Sage of Six Paths. Ninetales didn't reply to him, and kept complaining in his mind, what is Sage of Six Paths? He can only summon 9 truth-seeking balls in total, but what about Yearn? Ninetales roughly counted them and found that he couldn't count them, but after a rough observation, Yearn had summoned at least dozens of truth-seeking balls at this time, and the number was still growing. The more Ninetales thought about it, the worse he felt. At first, he was planning to let Yearn live with a smile behind him, but now it seems that he should live behind Yearn. Because the voices of the few people communicating were very low, the other ninjas could not hear what they were talking about at all. Seeing that the number of truth-seeking balls was almost enough, Yearn asked Sarutobi Yoshi to bring a map and asked him to mark the nearest route. After knowing the route, Yearn waved his hand, and the truth-seeking balls in the sky flew out quickly, and soon there was no trace. Then Yearn said, okay, let's start, and go at full speed along the shortest route. Chapter 74. Why didn't Yearn explain to the team? It's easy to understand. It doesn't make sense at all. The more she explains, the more trouble she will cause. It would be better to just order the team to move forward and let the facts speak for themselves. The horses started to move, pulling the supplies. Shimura Nobai wanted to say a few words, but he was frightened by the scene that Tsukimi had just staged. Although he didn't know what the truth-seeking ball was, the fact that he could freely manipulate so many objects at the same time was something he couldn't understand. So Shimura-shin shut up, but keeping silent for a while does not mean that Shimura-shin also agrees with Tsukimi. If any accidents happen to the team along the way, Shimura-shin will still jump out to blame Tsukimi. Although Sarutobi Yoshi still wanted to send scouts to explore the way, Tsukimi was the commander-in-chief after all. Even if Tsukimi asked him to die at this time, he would go without hesitation. Therefore, Sarutobi Yoshi could only suppress all his anxiety in his heart and act according to circumstances. In this way, the carriage swayed forward without stopping for a moment. After a while, Sarutobi Yoshi became more and more nervous. Under normal circumstances, the team would encounter enemy ninjas soon. Not long after, Sarutobi Yoshi and Shimura Nobai smelled blood at the same time. Since they smelled blood, it meant that there must be casualties nearby. It takes two to tango. Perhaps a conflict broke out between the ninjas of both sides nearby not long ago, so there must be ninjas from the hidden cloud village here. So Sarutobi Yoshi and Shimura Nobai drew their weapons, became alert, and stared intently in the direction where the smell of blood came from. At this time, the carriage was still moving forward, and the smell of blood was getting stronger and stronger. Even Chonin and the team could smell the strong smell of blood. Because Yearn did not order to stop at this time, the team continued to move forward. Soon after, the ninja at the front of the team saw the scene. Several ninjas wearing forward protectors from the hidden cloud village were lying on the ground in a twisted manner, with a penetrating wound on their chest, and the size of the wound was the same as the black ball that Yearn had just released. Soon all the ninjas saw the scene and swallowed their saliva unconsciously. Especially for Shimura Nobai, his first meeting with Tsukimi was not a very pleasant one. Jiraiya looked at the wound on the enemy's chest. Although it was stained with blood, it could still be seen that the wound was very smooth. Ninetales said, see, boy. If I hadn't warned you just now, you would be a disabled person. Jiraiya came to his senses and quickly expressed his gratitude to Ninetales. Jiraiya is worthy of being Naruto's master. If there is one man in the Hokage who possesses the strongest Genjutsu, it must be Naruto. How terrifying is Naruto? No matter how much hatred you have for Konoha, even if it is a blood feud, as long as he talks to you, you will go with him to protect Konoha in a short while. What rules? The first rule of the weird rules is never talk to Uzumaki Naruto for more than 10 sentences, otherwise you will lose yourself and become a puppet of Konoha forever. As Naruto's master, Jiraiya also has some talent. Among Tsunade and the others, Ninetales' favorite kid now is Jiraiya. It's not that Ninetales doesn't like Tsunade and Yukino, but Jiraiya's personality is most to Ninetales' liking. Jiraiya's familiarity and some stupid mistakes satisfied Ninetales' pleasure of being a teacher. Since Madara and others graduated, Ninetales has never taught students again. The appearance of Jiraiya made Ninetales find the original feeling. Tsukimi waved her hand and called Sarutobi Yoshi. She asked him to take the ninjas to clean up the bodies quickly. After receiving the order, Sarutobi Yoshi quickly completed the task. In this way, the team moved forward all the way, and had to stop from time to time to deal with the crime scene. Without exception, all the ninjas of the hidden cloud village died suddenly when the team was about to arrive. There were no signs of struggle or escape. Everyone was frightened by Tsukimi's tactics. Shimura Nobai even sighed in his heart, Danzo-sama, what kind of monster did you offend? At this time, there is a truth-seeking ball hidden near all the ninjas in the hidden cloud village within a radius of 250 miles. As long as a ninja is about to collide with the transport team, the truth-seeking ball will instantly rush out from the corner and kill the person directly. As for why Tsukimi did not eliminate all these ninjas, the reason was that Tsukimi always maintained the attitude that this war must be ended by Konoha itself, and she, Madara and Hashirama should not interfere too much. If Yearn hadn't taken on this job, she wouldn't have done it at all. Soon the team transported the supplies to the camp, and Sarutobi Yoshi went forward to hand over the supplies. The person in charge excitedly shook Sarutobi Yoshi's hand and said, you must have worked hard along the way. Sarutobi Yoshi immediately said, it's not hard, it's not hard. As a result, the person in charge thought that Sarutobi Yoshi was being modest and his attitude towards Sarutobi Yoshi became better and better. Actually, what Sarutobi Yoshi said was right. Along the way, Sarutobi Yoshi basically had nothing to do. His mission was to lead the ninjas to clean up the battlefield. There was nothing else to do. The most tiring part of the entire mission for Shimura no Baya was that he only said 2 sentences at the beginning, and then sat in the carriage the entire time, without even a chance to get off, and yet he completed the mission. After completing the mission, the transport team returned. Similarly, all the ninjas from the hidden cloud village that they were about to encounter along the way were lying on the ground, without a sound. At night, the team arrived at the headquarters. The spies near the headquarters discovered the whereabouts of the transport team early on and reported the information to Sarutobi Hiruzen. Hearing that the team had returned so quickly and that there was no supplies on the carriage, Hiruzen suddenly felt as if the sky had fallen. Had the supplies been robbed by the hidden cloud village again? After all, Tsukimi and the others came back too quickly, and Hiruzen couldn't believe that the transport team had successfully delivered the supplies to the battlefield camp. Hiruzen went out immediately and wanted to ask about Tsukimi's situation, but he didn't wait for Tsukimi, but waited for Danzo. Hiruzen's head started to hurt when he saw Danzo coming. Hiruzen whispered, Danzo, when you sees you later, don't talk. Let me ask first. Danzo nodded and said, don't worry, Hiruzen, I know what's going on. As a result, when Yuejian and others appeared in the shadows, Danzo shouted, Yuejian, do you have any explanation for this mission? Yujian asked in confusion, hey, Shimura no Baya, is the ecology near the headquarters so good? There are still monkeys calling in the middle of the night. Shimura no Baya broke out in a cold sweat. Both sides are untouchable. What should he do? But since Yujian had asked a question, Shimura Xin couldn't help but answer, so he could only say awkwardly, sir, you are joking. Danzo wanted to say something more, but Hiruzen stopped him with a fierce look. Danzo knew from his many years of experience dealing with Hiruzen that Hiruzen was on the verge of an explosion, and if he said anything more, Hiruzen might attack him. When Yuejian and the others approached, Hiruzen said, Yuejian, how are the supplies? Yujian casually jumped off the carriage and said, it's delivered. Hiruzen slapped his forehead and said, that was the last of the supplies, how could it be stolen? Suddenly Hiruzen came to his senses and said, no, you said it was delivered. Yes, it has been delivered. As soon as Yuejian finished speaking, Hiruzen looked at Sarutobi Yoshi to confirm the situation with him. Sarutobi Yoshi nodded, indicating that what Yuejian said was true. At this moment, Hiruzen's mood was like a roller coaster. Just as he hit the bottom, he flew straight into the sky. Hiruzen didn't care how Tsukimi delivered the supplies, as long as they were delivered. So Hiruzen hurried forward to welcome Tsukimi back, and at the same time asked someone to notify the logistics department to start cooking to welcome Tsukimi and the others. At this time, Danzo wanted to ask something, but Shimura no Baya ran over, grabbed Danzo, and cried, Sir, please don't say anything. Don't say anything again. Chapter 75. Hiruzen took the entire transport team to have a meal. Ever since the supplies were robbed by the hidden cloud village, Hiruzen had been worried. And now, Yuejian finally made Hiruzen feel relieved that the huge rock in his heart had fallen to the ground. Watching the logistics staff bring up plate after plate of delicious food, many of which were still steaming, many members of the transport team took advantage of Yujian's light and had a good meal this time. When these ninjas were not on transport missions, they were fighting on the front lines. They ate soldier pills every day and had no chance to cook. Yuejian watched as Hiruzen brought 2 more bottles of wine from somewhere, and walked up to Yuejian with a little stealth. Hiruzen whispered, drink some. Yujian nodded and did not refuse Hiruzen's invitation. Last time, Yujian tasted the wine that Hiruzen brought, and to be honest, it was unexpectedly delicious. Hiruzen poured 2 glasses of wine, and they both drank them in one gulp. The alcohol content is not high and there is no burning sensation in the mouth. When the wine goes down your throat, it has a strong fruity aroma and is very sweet. The 2 of them finished the 2 bottles of wine very quickly. Yujian couldn't help but ask Hiruzen, Hiruzen, where did you get this wine? I'll go buy some later. Hiruzen chuckled, put his thumb in his mouth and bit it, then actually began to make hand seals. Hiruzen placed his hands on the ground and said, spiritual summoning technique. With a bang, a cloud of smoke appeared where Hiruzen placed his hands. When the smoke dissipated, the figure of a monkey was revealed. When standing upright, the monkey is much taller than an ordinary person, with broad shoulders and a thick back, and its body is covered with muscles as knotty as rocks, especially the explosive lines on its shoulders, neck, and arms, which are extremely visually oppressive. His long white fur clung to his body like metal armor, he wore a Konoha forehead protector, a bronze chainmail belt around his waist, and Shurenro-style magic-breaking knots wrapped around his wrists. Hiruzen, why did you summon me? The monkey scratched his head and asked Hiruzen a little confused. Come on, Inma, let me introduce you to a friend. Hiruzen pulled Inma to Yuejian and said, this is Natsume Yuejian, the elite JA. Nin of Konoha. Hiruzen continued, Tsukimi, this is Ape Ma, my summoning beast and fighting partner. The wine we drink is brewed by the Ape Mame tribe. Yujian and Inma greeted each other and got to know each other. Inma now still looked like a young monkey. Although his muscles had fully bulged, his appearance was still relatively handsome. However, what Yuejian did not expect was that the wine that Hiruzen brought was actually authentic monkey wine. In her previous life, Yuejian had heard of various legends about monkey wine, but had never tasted a sip. I didn't expect that the first time I drank monkey wine in my life was thanks to Hiruzen. Hey, Inma, do you have any more wine? Hiruzen said to Inma. Unexpectedly, when the Monkey King heard this, he immediately took a step back and said, come on, Hiruzen, you've already drunk 2 jars of my wine this month. Hey, aren't we inviting new friends to drink today? Just bring another jar. After all, you are the young patriarch, so you can have as much wine as you want. Okay, then you cancel the summoning now and summon me again in half a minute, and I'll go get another jar of wine. After Yaemo said this, Hiruzen cancelled the summoning. After a while, when he used spiritualism again, the ape demon was holding a huge jar of wine in his hand, which was half a person's height. Seeing that Sarutobi Hiruzen was drunk, he was very happy. He pulled Tsukimi and Inma to sit on the table. He tapped the cork with his hand, and the aroma of wine instantly spread. Drink, drink. I won't go home until I'm drunk tonight. Hiruzen said happily. Uchiha was also moved by Hiruzen's emotions and joked, "Aren't you afraid that Danzo will come and fight you to death?" Hiruzen curled his lips when he heard this and said, "Don't worry, I just sent Danzo out on a mission. He won't be back for 3 hours. When he's about to come back, we can just use Chakra to force the alcohol out. It won't be a problem." Hiruzen drank a large bowl of wine. Nine Tails came over after smelling the wine and asked, "Tsukimi, what kind of wine is this? Why does it smell so good?" Hiruzen was stunned and said, "Tsukimi, isn't this the owner of the Kurama peripheral store? Why are you here?" Tsukimi introduced her summoning beast Kurama to Hiruzen and Tsuruma, but did not tell him about its identity as a tailed beast. So the scene evolved into 2 people, a fox and a monkey, holding the wine bowl and drinking non-stop, and soon the jar of wine was empty. Although the alcohol content of the wine is not high, the quantity is large. In addition, the few people did not deliberately use Chakra to force out the alcohol, and soon Hiruzen felt drunk. In her previous life, Uchiha couldn't drink alcohol. She would feel dizzy after just 1 glass of beer. But her physical fitness in this life was so strong that it was a little scary. The alcohol was completely broken down as soon as it entered her stomach. However, she was still a little excited because of her emotions. After all, it's not the wine that makes you drunk, it's the people who make themselves drunk. In fact, Hiruzen was the only one who was a little drunk. Inma drank every day and had already practiced it. Kurama's body was even more terrifyingly large. This amount of wine was not even as much as a sip of water from Kurama, so they were not drunk at all, but they still enjoyed the drink very much. At this time, Inma took the initiative to ask Hiruzen to cancel the summons and let him go back to get a few jars of wine to give to Uegian and Kurama. Although Kurama lived a long life, he was short of money and had nothing to give as a gift. "You can't give away your pretentious training manual or peripherals, that would be too embarrassing." Then Kurama spoke up and said that if Hiruzen and Tsuruma were in danger one day, they should call Kurama over. Kurama claimed that there was only one person in the ninja world that he could not deal with, and there were 2 others that he could barely fight to a draw, and he could deal with any other difficulties. Hiruzen and Inma thought Kurama was drunk and talking nonsense, so they didn't take it seriously. However, the man and the monkey continued to support Kurama, making Kurama extremely happy. However, when the First Shinobi World War was about to end, Hiruzen discovered the true strength of Nine Tails and realized what he had exchanged for the wine at that time. After sealing several jars of wine into the scroll, Tsukimi ended today's drinking party because according to the time calculation, Danzo would be back soon. Hiruzen simply used his Chakra to force out all the alcohol, then used wind style. Great breakthrough to blow away the smell of alcohol. Tsunade and the others actually wanted to join in the drinking, but were chased away by Tsukimi on the grounds that they were underage. After saying goodbye to Hiruzen, Tsukimi went back to the tent to sleep. The next morning, Tsukimi planned to send Tsunade and the others to the main battlefield. Soon Danzo completed the task assigned to him by Hiruzen, which was to patrol around the headquarters. It's not difficult, just time-consuming. Originally Danzo was planning to ask Shimura Shinaya for specific information about Tsukimi, but before he could open his mouth he was sent away by Hiruzen. When Danzo returned to the headquarters, the first thing he did was to look for Shimura Shinaya. As they were walking, Danzo suddenly stopped, his nose twitching, and he asked, "Strange, why do I smell like alcohol?" Danzo didn't think much about it. He felt that Tsukimi's information was the most important. After finding Shimura Shinaya, Danzo directly asked about Tsukimi's information. As a result, Shimura Shinaya hesitated for a long time and couldn't say anything. Danzo was a little angry and scolded Shimura Shinaya to speak quickly. It's not that Shimura didn't want to tell it, but he really didn't know what Yumi's ability was, so he described the scene to Danzo exactly as it happened. When Danzo heard this, he was a little surprised, but not to the point of being frightened. He thought that it was because Shimura Shinaya's strength was average and not enough to see through Tsukimi's moves. However, Danzo still guessed that Yuma might have some special bloodline limit, so Danzo muttered, "Bloodline limit? I wonder if I can use it." If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.